gravel. He's been in the gravel himself since then as well, so the bite a bit in a way. Lead gap, 9.3 seconds. Brendan Hartley is responding to Kevin Estra's challenge. So it's a real cat and mouse battle we've got at the head of the field now, with 11 hours and 42 minutes of the race completed. Michelle Gatting looks on within the Sarah Bovey looks on within the Iron Dames garage.
Checking out what's going on the socials. Marina Sato getting ready to take over in the United Autosports McLaren garage.
And he's been doing pretty well in that car, considering he was never really a megastar in single-seater racing. He's adapted nicely to GT cars. He's found his level and has done some good times so far in the race.
Well, I always think that certain cars suit some drivers in a way that others don't. Justin Wilson was a classic example. Loved a car that you could wrestle around. So he was good in Palmer Audi, great in the old Formula 3000s, would have been horrible in Formula 3, where no input and extreme precision was the key. And then again, found his métier perfectly in Indy cars that you had to wrestle around. So it may just be that these cars suit Marina Sato's way of going racing.
311 rejoins after a moment. Jack Aitken at the wheel of it, and you can see on the screen just how wet it is. Jack Aitken seems to have been in this car forever and a day, and he's coping with the worst of the weather now.
I think more rain has now arrived. We just heard a moment or two ago, it was the Porsche team telling Brendan Hartley, Toyota team telling Brendan Hartley in the number 8 car that more heavy rain was expected, and lo and behold, there it are.
Absolutely right. So, the road possibly at its wettest now. This is what the teams have kind of been teed up for. You can see the amount of spray. Even if you can't see the rain, you can see the spray when it's illuminated, and that tells you how much water has fallen. And the lap times are going up. We were down to 3:57s not long ago. Now we're in the 4 minutes and north of 4 minutes.
Yeah, and Jack Aitken was trying to pick up speed out of the S's through Tertre Rouge when he looped the car around. So that was before he came out onto the Mulsanne in the Whelen Caddy. Behind him is Romain Grosjean, and a safety car now. So there's the 59 car, 3rd place in class, and that is Nicolas Costa, who will be heading. There you go, that's the end of the S's. Got it out of the gravel somehow. That's remarkable ability and agility from Jack Aitken. A car that has half spun and stopped in the gravel. Having a bit of water on it gives it some density, but it's still well done. Now, why do we have a safety car? The safety cars, all 3, have been scrambled. Here's the way it works. Intervention. Okay, so something major has happened. We need to get people, bodies on track. Safety cars. Now, that brings the drivers down to a reasonable speed behind one of the 3 safety cars. They're scrambled from pit exit, from the first chicane on the Mulsanne, and from Arnage. And then, once the cars are bunched up, you then have gaps where there are no cars going round, which you don't get with a full course yellow, and that will allow marshals and vehicles to move across the track as required.
Just wondering whether it's purely because of the rain, and it is dark and it's very heavy rain. Now, you might argue if it's wet, drive a bit slower, but on safety grounds, given that it is dark, that might.
Another aspect of that is, as soon as you slow them down, they lose any heat in their wet weather tyres, which actually makes it harder to drive.
But I'm struggling to find anybody else, unless, again, it's because there's now
the stationary, other than the ones we know of, which aren't on track.
Exactly. That's why I'm leaning towards it being a weather-induced intervention. We will see.
I quite like your sea of gravel approaching Tertre Rouge thought, actually.
Okay,
because
should we go with that?
Because, especially in the darkness, that really would be an issue, because it'll be very hard to see and really quite dodgy. So to get a sweeper out there rather than just a few marshals with brooms might be what the race director is looking at.
And you would need to do it with a safety cars plural, because that way you've got the gaps so that the marshals can work. If you just did it as a slow zone, you wouldn't really ever have a break in the traffic, as it were, to be able to go onto the circuit and do any clearing up. So it looks as though it is for safety reasons, rain / gravel on the road / darkness. And into the pit lane comes the race leader then. So Sebastian Buemi is in, and normally Porsche 6 matches them, so expect to see number 6 in this time. We wait for Kevin Estre to appear either over the timing line to pick up the race lead or come into the pit lane, and he goes through on the track. So Porsche number 6 will now take over the lead.
So this is a strategic pit stop rather than one that they are being forced to make because it's on low fuel, because the Porsche would equally be on low fuel. So what other work are they doing? Now, the reason for stopping behind the safety car is that you lose less time. However, you can't just go back out and join the safety car queue from which you came in. You need to wait for the next safety car to come round. This is a regulation. You cannot join the queue that you left. You must join the next one back in line, so that you can't come in off the beginning of a long safety car queue and join at the back and effectively get an absolutely free pit stop.
So this is your leader, and this is the lack of view.
And driver's identification screen. This is a driver's safety screen there with SC safety car. That reflects all the flag signals. So when we go green, it'll immediately go green and show green and then turn itself off. If there are other incidents you need to know about, if there's a slow car, it'll have a white flag, it'll have a blue flag or red flag, black flag, whatever. All of those are replayed to the cars that need to know them. Race control can also use that to send a message not just to all of the cars, like this one, safety car, which everyone is under. You can send them as the cars approach a slow zone. They'll be automatically informed that they're in the next slow zone, and then they get to a slow zone. They'll also have the option in race control to tell one particular driver one particular message, so they can tell Kevin Estre, track limits, turn 5.
Yes, and
you're exceeding them, and we're watching you. So,
and nobody else need know.
No, exactly.
Just direct to that one car. Exactly right.
Exactly so. So it's a really, really useful system. It relays in real time all the messages the driver needs to know for a safety basis, and it can be used by race control as well for that direct one-on-one intervention.
There are more and more championships using these kind of in-car marshalling displays, in-car marshalling systems, but to have it to be so specific to individual messages, technology is fantastic, isn't it?
It is a great system, and actually you see how well it works when you look at what happened in the Road to Le Mans race, where lots of cars were steaming into slow zones that they weren't really quite aware of, and well, a number of near accidents and some actual accidents happened as a result. So the more those are spread out into other championships, the safer everybody will be, and the better day. Baked potato with chili. Ooh, that's not bad, is it? Yes. At 3:50 in the morning. So running through the sequence of events there with the graphics on the screen, as the number 7 Toyota also stops for fuel. So they are taking this strategic opportunity for both cars to fill with fuel and fresh, wet tyres. Now then, did we see fresh wets going on the number 8 car? They're obviously settling for the long run on this one. And if the rain's getting heavier, you don't want worn wet tyres with maybe less water clearing. You want brand new ones. And the deal with the wet weather tyres is they are not limited for purely safety reasons. Blue sidewalls on the 50 Ferrari. They're stopping for fuel as well. But the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsport car has not. Now, there is absolutely going to be a chance for them to stop next lap. We're not going to have a single lap safety car and then a merge, so the pit lane will remain open. So they can come in and do it next lap if they want to. They may decide they'll stick with track position, but certainly rivals at Toyota and Ferrari are taking the opportunity. And if you wonder why the entire field isn't coming in, well, it's because they haven't yet got there and they're all behind safety cars. So you have to wait until your queue gives you the opportunity to jump into the pit lane. While the 3 safety cars are going round, pit entrance will always remain open, and the pit exit will be opened to allow you to join the next safety car when it gets past you.
It'll be interesting to see whether Estre brings number 6, the new race-leading Porsche, in on the next lap, because Porsche will be aware of what Toyota has done. Equally, though, they would have seen the Toyota come in and probably had just enough time to be able to command Estre to come into the pit lane on that same lap if they feel that they should have been covering the Toyota. So now it will be intriguing to see what the decision is on number 6, which currently leads the race. Brendan Hartley has gone back out. Lopez for third and Miguel Molina in number 50 Ferrari third and fourth wait their turn to be released. And the rain is due to end at 4 a.m, 8 minutes time, if you believe the race control message line.
There seems to be less in the pit lane now, and it is coming east to west. It's definitely not psychological rain, though. The number of that of course will be the difficult second album from the David Addison prog rock project.
Well, the first one wasn't a walkover.
The tricky first album, yes, indeed. Yeah. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are watching us. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, if you are enjoying what you're seeing now, tell a friend. If you're not, don't tell a friend, tell us. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, if you're watching Le Mans for the first time, the 101st time, or anywhere in between, you can go to the FIA WEC YouTube channel and see so much more. Not only can you watch all of last year's race, you can watch all of the races so far this season and last year and so forth, all archived, but actually critically and possibly more digestibly, you can catch up with full access. And that's an hour-long program produced after each of the races of the season, and it gives you an awful lot of great insight into what happens in the teams behind the scenes when things are going on track, either rightly or wrongly. And really fascinating. Just gives you a great view of some of the characters in the sport, in the garage, that we sort of think we know, and then you see them all sniggering at their teammates' expense. You think, oh yeah, actually, they really are quite a lot more like us than the automata that you sometimes imagine a professional racing driver is.
And amongst those watching and cheering on Ben Barnicoat, who's a great supporter of and occasional racer in Brisker Formula 1 stock cars. Lots of the Brisker F1 community, drivers and fans alike watching, I understand, as well. Getting replays of the cars from pit stops earlier on, and now back live, the cars leaving the pit lane, blasting out onto a still very wet circuit. And there, 82, rather reluctant to get going, but it will fire up, hopefully, and Danny Junqueira is away. Go on, done it.
Didn't seem to get many revs on. It certainly wasn't spinning its wheels in any way. Kevin Estre does head for the pit lane. So Porsche covering off what Toyota are doing. However, not sure that they've actually really done that, because they've done an entire lap behind the safety car before coming in. So the in-lap, quote, will be considerably quite a bit slower than Toyota's. However, again, as the safety car passes the pit in, they are not the only car to stop. You saw a host coming in there as well. But this is the race leader.
Even if they lose the lead by pitting a lap later, they'll all bunch up ready for the restart. So they might lose track position, but they won't lose that much time, even if it turns out to be the wrong call. But there's some adjustment to the rear wing maybe there. The fuel goes in. There's another set of wets standing by, but they don't need them. So Kevin Estre dispatched on warm, if slightly worn, wets, but he won't have taken too much out of them.
Didn't look like an adjustment. Looked at like the man on the rear wing was actually just hefting it to see if it was still attached properly. Maybe Estre's complained about a vibration or some such. Timo Bogusławski under investigation for overtaking under the safety car in the number 78 Acodis ASP Lexus. Their two cars, 78 and 87. Again, there must be a relevance there, and I don't know what it is. That's the car 78. You're not looking at it now. That's the 155 Formula Racing Ferrari, not actually being run under the banner of Formula Racing, being run under the banner of Spirit of Race, a team banner that would be a regular rival to Formula Racing, in fact, in the European Le Mans Series. Yeah, the 78 car was hit hard from behind by the number 7 Toyota in morning warm-up, in which, in the words of the late, great Hugh Chamberlain, nothing good ever happens, and there is definitely evidence of that. And David, you and I, not only missing the late, great Huge, but also a denizen of this booth at this time of the small hours. For those of you who are watching in prime time, who've spent a lot of years watching Le Mans, you will miss the sound of the late, recently, very recently departed Neville Hay, an enormous enthusiast of motor racing of all kinds, particularly of the 1930s and 1950s, when he was starting to get into motor racing in the 1950s and learning about the 1930s from the people that were still around. And yeah, miss him very much indeed. Part of the Eurosport team for a long number of years, and Neville having a ramble during the evening was always a joy to behold. Although there were occasions, it must be said, when I was sitting in the booth realising that of the three of us, myself, Neville Hay and Chris Parsons, there was only one of us actually still awake.
Le Mans mattered hugely to Neville. He loved the race. He used to come here with Richard, his son. Neville was, I don't think, ever prouder than when Richard raced in Le Mans for Morgan, for TVR. And Neville was one of the founding fathers of Radio Le Mans in its very, very early days. In 1987, the commentary done from the old Tribune was by Neville. He was the most generous of characters, not financially, I don't mean it in that respect, but in his time, his guidance, his support, his enthusiasm. And both Martin and I, and quite a few other people at Le Mans this weekend, owe Neville a huge debt because of what he did for us to help our careers, such as they are, to manifest. Anybody that showed any enthusiasm for the sport, Nev would encourage. He would take them under his wing. He was a generous character in every respect. He was a great raconteur. He had a voice like nobody else's. And that original Radio Le Mans commentary, bits of it still exist, because those of you with another long memory will remember a track by the Swiss band Yellow called The Race. And they issued on the B side of the single, that dates it, doesn't it, something called the Sporting Mix. And it took different cuts of commentators from various things, which included Neville's commentary from Le Mans in 1987. So it starts, this single, with the engines have started, there are yellow flags still down at the start, and the last line was the flag is out, the race is won. And it just seemed like the perfect sign-off, ultimately, for the late great Neville Hay.
Safety car remains out at Le Mans, and we are seconds away from the halfway mark. 12 hours and 30 odd seconds remain. We've got this, David. We've broken the back of it. David, we're halfway through. I think that, do you know, actually that calls for a cup of tea and a bit of cake. So why don't you pop out and switch the kettle on yourselves and treat yourselves, even if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Cup of tea and a bit of cake, not a bad idea.
So the halfway mark is just about reached. There, the Rolex clock saying we've done 12 hours. It's 4 a.m. and an awful lot has happened in the last 12 hours of the race. And it is Brendan Hartley still, back in the lead of the race, because on that last pit stop, the Toyota has jumped ahead, but the gap is much reduced. But let's have a look at what's been going on in the race thus far. It all began, Martin Haven, in the daylight.
No, this is Spa 24 hours. Okay, it was a dry start to the race, which came as a surprise to many, with an all-American front row. Martin too, immediately trying to insinuate themselves into the leading group. The Porsche, incidentally, Roger Penske's second pole at Le Mans, just 61 brief years after Pedro Rodriguez, with whom he was sharing a Nart Ferrari 330, took pole for the duo in 1963, when I was 2 years old. That's astonishing. Their 20th overall victory, and that's only the overall victories for the company from Stuttgart. So on the Mulsanne, first time of asking. Sparks from the Porsche. Great view back here as well from the leader. There's the number 3 car tucking in into second place. Sebastian Bourdais starting the car that he qualified so strongly, nearly took pole position. But around the outside, Antonio Fuoco was on fire in the opening lap. And Fuoco, latching onto the tail of the number 6 Porsche, was soon able to challenge for the lead. Well, we knew with 9 different manufacturers and 23 cars in the hypercar category. We were in for a big race, and so it proved. On board in the Cadillac, here's a great view of the start. How close quarters it is. Look at that. You can almost feel that your toes are touching the Porsche in front. But the Caddy just being bounced around the outside by the Ferrari, just being a little bolder, a little deeper in under braking, and taking that second place away into the Dunlop chicane. First time of asking, would then go on to take the lead of the race towards the end of the Mulsanne straight. No, it's not daylight, it is the middle of the race. 12 hours in, but this is a great view on board from the Cadillac number 3 that started on the outside of the front row of the grid. Here's the view from the 51 Ferrari, starting behind the pole sitter in third. Okay, can't go inside, your teammate's there, so you're left with no option but to back off a little and see if there's an inside channel to the chicane. There isn't, the Cadillac's covered that off. There's your teammate who's gone around the outside from 4th to 2nd. Drat, can't let him get away with that. Got to stay outside the Caddy. Not quite enough heat in the tyres, can't do that. The Cadillac's just struggling a little. The Cadillac's warm-up is normally really good. Ferrari's maybe not quite so quick. Down the Mulsanne though, heading to Mulsanne corner, looking back from the race leader, and here comes the 50 Ferrari. Antonio Fuoco going the long way round the outside. This is a great pass for the lead. See it on board. In fact, it's down towards Indianapolis here, the fastest part of the circuit, over the brow, sweeping down towards the flat-out right-hander. You hit VMAX there, the quickest part of the track, and he got back online, bringing the speed right down for the second part. Short squirt down to Arnage, hairpin right, so hard right turn, slowest part on the circuit, and we have the lead on lap 1. Only 23 hours, 59 minutes and a couple of seconds to hang on to that, and jobs are good. Number 2 Cadillac back in the garage, or back in the pit lane rather. The rule in the pits is that no more than 2 people can work on the car at any one time, and as a result, anything more than basic stuff and a pit stop will be done in the garage, where you can throw all bodies at it.
Information to the pit lane. It seems that we may be staying longer than we expected with the safety cars on track. It seems that we may stay much longer than we expected. It was getting lighter, now it's getting back to heavy rain again.
So that confirming what we were suggesting earlier, Martin, that it is because of the rain and the darkness, and it's a safety call, really, which you can understand. So with the rain falling and it's set to get heavier, in the darkness, it's looking after the drivers, it's looking after their safety, and of course, tangentially, you might argue, the marshal's safety, because if they are trying to deal with accidents in bad weather, their job becomes more dangerous as well. You can see the rain falling quite heavily again in the pit lane, and more cars cycling through pit stops. So right now, Brendan Hartley's number 8 Toyota leads number 6, the Kevin Estre-driven Porsche, and then Jose Maria Lopez, subbing, of course, for Mike Conway, hurt in his bicycling accident, 3rd. 4th, Miguel Molina in Ferrari number 50. In 5th place, 83, Yeye, and then in 6th spot, 38, Oliver Rasmussen in the Hertz Team Jota entry. 7th is Cadillac number 3, Renger van der Zande. 8th place, Alessandro Pierguidi's 51 Ferrari. That's last year's winning combination of drivers, don't forget, along with Antonio Giovinazzi and James Collado. 9th, number 2, which we saw a moment ago in the pit lane, Alex Palou in the Cadillac. 10th is number 5, Porsche, Michael Christensen. And 11th, Porsche number 12 from the Jota stable, Callum Ilott. Those 11 are your cars on the lead lap. So right now, just after halfway, it is any one of those 11, arguably, that has the chance of winning the race. But an awful lot can happen in the remainder of this race, and so right now it's all neutralised anyway. What we do know is that it's going to be bunched up for the restart, of course. We also know that the wave by and getting everybody in a line takes quite a while, so this is liable to be a long safety car period. The first one, and this is the second of the race, the first one was over an hour, and I suspect this might be going the same way, because we've already had the best part of 25 minutes.
The first one took a long time because it took a long time to repair the barriers. As you just heard Eduardo Freitas extending this, and again, that does rather underline your thought that it was for rain. Again, to keep everybody safe, because if the drivers are safer at lower speed, then the marshals remain safe and so on. And in the eyes of Eduardo Freitas, a good race is one that everybody goes home from, which I have to say, I find very hard to argue with at all. So the safety cars continue to circulate. I just saw, again, another slew of pit stops, and particularly that LMP2 car, the Panis racing car, that taking on fresh wets. So again, what you don't want, if the rain is going to remain at a reasonably heavy level and the track remain pretty wet, is tired wets that have got no grip. In the same way that your road car, you are forced to change tyres that are going bald because there will be no grip in the wet. Ditto for a racing car.
However, and I don't disagree with your point at all, but if you are being told by race control that this is likely to be a long safety car period, and therefore you're going to be running at a slower pace, would you waste, in quotes, a fresh set when you can get away with a used set because you're going at a slower speed for a long period of time?
Yes, you will, because it'll be
future here. So I know it's tough. Brakes are cold, tires are cold. Just do your best.
Yeah, I'm giving a lot of space because it's, I've got no brakes either with this temperature. I guess everyone's struggling, but yeah, even at this speed, it's not really fun.
Yeah, I understood. I can see from the onboard, it's not a picnic.
It's certainly not a picnic.
It's
certainly
not
a picnic.
really fun. It's not really fun. The other element, of course, is that wet weather tyres have a softer compound of rubber than dry weather tyres, and so they will wear quicker, but they will also retain their heat a little better. So the deeper the rubber, the more tread block you can move around, the more it will retain heat in the tyre. So the thinner the amount of rubber that's left, the less heat it will retain, and the quicker the water will cool it down. So big, fat, chunky, brand new, I've spent a lot of money on these wet weather tyres, actually are better for you than keeping the old ones on. And that's why you will see cars cycling through the pit lane. The other thing, of course, is that if you're doing it, the chances are most other people are doing it, so effectively you're, quote, losing less time, or indeed no time, because they're going to do a similar thing. And it goes back to what we've said a few times about taking chances in traffic, for instance. The gain against the potential loss. And here, time gained by not changing onto a better wet weather tyre versus the potential loss from not having changed onto a wet weather tyre and your driver clanging it off a barrier, even at these ridiculously slow speeds. I think, you know, we've done 12 hours. We've got a lot of racing and potentially a lot of weather still to deal with. So try and make sure the car's in as good a condition as possible, even if it means you drop back one safety car. Because don't forget, they're all going to join up again. And if you are already behind your class leader, then you're still going to be behind your class leader. If you're not, then there is the possibility that you may end up ahead of your class leader and get the wave around and so on. And so if you're off the lead lap, like the Whelan Cadillac, then actually it's entirely possible that the wave around might get you back to the tail of the queue and back onto the lead lap rather than being just about to get passed by the leader again. So we did see 51 Ferrari had dropped off in the last safety car, had dropped off the lead lap, and because of the way that safety cars worked, he ended up getting in the queue ahead of the overall race leader, got waved around, and that brought him back onto the lead lap at the tail of the long safety car queue. And it's going to be a long queue because there are still, how many? Well, there are over 50 cars still running. Passing me the marker. Oh, I have it here, right beside my caramel wafer, my Tunnocks caramel wafer, because an official retirement, I'm afraid, for the number 45 CrowdStrike by APR LMP2 car. Colin Brown was I'm going to have to climb on the table here now and try not to spill my cup of tea. Colin Brown.
This makes great telly, doesn't it?
I know, it is great telly. Painting pictures with words. Colin Brown was trying to get the car back after it shed a wheel, but he, Nicky Katzberg and George Kurtz, I'm afraid, will go no further. The car went no further, went behind a wall, went behind a barrier on the Mulsanne straight, and without the rear wheel attached to the car, he couldn't reattach it even though the wheel was there because there was no wheel nut still. And even if there had been being able to do it up tight enough by hand would seem to be a little bit unlikely. So that car is a goner. Duquesne's 30 LMP2 car, also hors de combat. 46 Team WRT. Did we notify that? I didn't know that the doctor's car was out.
Yes, that was Ahmad Al-Hafi who put it off on the approach to Terre Rouge and damaged the radiator, water leak, couldn't be coaxed back into life. So yeah, that went 2 or 3 hours ago.
Last year a winner in the support race here, the Road to Le Mans on Saturday morning before the big race. This year the car has led, but is out. Jim, give me 3 minutes. Not quite sure what's going on there. Argentine flag in the AF Corsa Vista garage. That's another of the cars that has gone by the board. Number 54 Ferrari, run by Vista AF Corsa, Thomas Floor, Francesco Castellace and Davide Rigon. A very experienced amateur driver, the bronze driver, Thomas Floor. The only man in the field, incidentally, who has a dresser, obviously apart from your good self.
Well, indeed, yes.
By that, I don't mean a wooden set of drawers with his clothes in. I mean a man who,
yes.
indeed.
And that was the car that crashed early on, so you're
yes.
aware that it went out with floor damage.
Indeed.
Yes.
Tish.
Good night.
The very first retirement of the race, unfortunately, for Thomas Floor. This is always the time of day, or here night, when mechanics who have foolishly fallen asleep through utter exhaustion are pilloried and ridiculed by their teammates.
Yeah, Roman, that's fine. Just use the brakes to get a little bit of regen, and then you can use the left paddle to manual deploy, just to manage the SOC and keep temperature in the battery.
Okay, so we're running through a panoply of their terminology now. So using the brakes to regen, so the Lamborghini, a Le Mans hypercar, has its electric hybrid drive unit on the front axle. Now, this is not just an electric motor, as in your Scalextric's car, where power goes in, turns the shaft that turns the wheels. When the car is being driven along by its own speed, if you lift off the throttle, that electric motor then becomes an electric generator being turned by the motion of the wheels, and like an alternator on your road car, it generates electricity and sends it back to the battery. So it's a motor generator unit, an MGU. It can send electrical power to the wheels, or power from electricity to the wheels, or the wheels can help it spin and generate electricity like a turbine that goes back into the battery. So that's the regen bit. Then you can use the paddle on the steering wheel to manually deploy that electric hybrid charge if you want, or to help you regenerate it. There'll be a paddle there to help you regenerate it without needing to use the brake pedal. That will also help state of charge, SOC, or what we refer to as how much battery you've got left on your phone or on your watch, or indeed in your remote control car. So it is a way of charging up the battery. If you've ever driven a Lexus or another hybrid that's got an indication of which way the electrical power is flowing, either by being regenerated under braking or using it to power the car, then you'll know exactly in graphical terms what I'm struggling to describe without a whiteboard and a pen. On board with the third of our Porsches in the Penske fleet, this is Mathieu Jaminet.
Try the wiper button one more time, Mathieu.
Yeah, nothing happens.
Copy, stand by.
You can see his problem here, can't you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? In front of him is a racetrack and some cars. That's about as lucid as it gets. The human eye will detect a little bit more. The screen, the angle of it and the air going over it helps to clear a little bit of the water, but unlike your road car, the tear-offs here will not have Rain-X or another water dispersal agent on them, so there's a lot of water in the air, means there's a lot of water on the screen. Now, at this speed, less of an issue, but once they start to pick up speed, if it is still pretty wet, then he is going to be driving quite blind. And as with your own road car, flicking the wiper switch, nothing happens. Not something you're going to be able to fix from the cockpit.
No, and it's going to be a long stop potentially, because although you can, for some things, just put a new section on the car, new front, new rear, wiper mechanism, wiper electrics, that's going to take a little bit more time to trace. It could be something like a fuse, it could be something more sinister, but it doesn't have the makings of being a quick pit stop for that as the rain continues to fall. And number 6, Kevin Estre, running second. Let's listen in.
Indianapolis, good grip, 1 and 2, use dry line. Arnage, good grip, use dry line. Porsche, average grip, outside line. Karting, a lot of understeer exit. Ford, not great grip, dry line.
We're being told that this rain is likely to stay, Martin, until 6 a.m. We've got another hour and 40 minutes of it. Now, I'm not saying that that's an hour and 40 minutes of safety car necessarily, but we know the rain is going to be set in. Now, of course, we're not that far off daylight starting to break. Within about an hour or so, it will start to becoming light. So that takes away some of the danger, if that's the right word, from race control.
Yep. The jeopardy. It definitely does, yes. Visibility would be better.
It would be better.
You're absolutely right. You seem to have kiboshed yourself a bit here, don't you?
In the sense of me ending up with a long safety car.
And not wandering off gaily to your bed.
Well, no, it is absolutely fine. I feel as though I should support you in your second hour of need of safety cars.
Yes, for another 40 minutes before you clear off.
But I want to see how the master copes with this, you see, and I'm going to learn from your proficiency. So we are behind the safety car for safety reasons, because it is very, very wet, and at 20 past 4 in the morning, it is very, very dark. And just to negate some of the jeopardy and the risk for the drivers, this section of the race is being controlled by the safety car. Just going back to an earlier point that you were making about the benefits, or otherwise, of using an old set of wets under this safety car or a brand new set. I may be misreading it, but one of the websites is talking about one of the Ferrari hypercars taking on fronts only. Now, is there a benefit to do that? Does it save you much time on the pit stop, bearing in mind you're going to have to queue up at the end anyway?
No, but a fresher set might retain more heat across the front axle. Don't forget the Ferraris, along with the Peugeots and escapes me, the Toyotas and the Isotta have front-wheel drive, so they got front drive hybrid, whereas the LMDH cars, which are the cars under the IMSA WeatherTech rule set, so the Porsches, Lamborghini and Cadillac and so on, they only can drive the rear wheels. So fresher tyres on the front help you to build a bit more temperature perhaps, or just have a little bit more control on the front as you deploy that hybrid. Now, you're not allowed to deploy the hybrid till you're over 190 kilometers an hour. And they won't be doing that behind the safety car anytime soon.
But you keep the warm tyres on the back as well in the same, so you've got new on the front, the rear, warm on the back. Yeah. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, that would be my guess.
Okay.
Not being an engineer or a driver, or entirely that bright either. Not quite sure. Having a nice relaxed time there in the garage, aren't they? Trying to keep their spirits up. Now, Kevin Estre was dictating there on air his thoughts about the lines that various people should be using on various different corners, because the level of wetity, that wasn't for our benefit, or indeed the benefit of anybody else listening in other than his own team. Why would he be doing that? I'm sensing that Kevin may be coming to the end of a driving stint, and he is giving information to the garage, and whoever is due to take the car over next will have the headset on and be listening to that information. So they'll go, okay, use the normal dry line everywhere apart from here where you use the wet line, here where you use the wet line, and here where you use the wet line. So you can see a number of teams are preparing for pit stops. Another number of teams are not.
Well, if this is likely to be a long safety car period, it would be in the team's best interests to put the slower driver of the team in and therefore not waste your quick driver. And they don't want to waste Estra, so they may well put Andre Lotterer in, who I know he's not been long out of the car, but he's not been as quick as Kevin Estra, and don't waste Kevin's speed because you can't use it at the moment.
Well, there's a bus I didn't see coming. Andre Lotterer, the slow driver.
Slower driver of the three.
In the Porsche. I think that probably applies in LMP2 and GT3. There's some great well-wishers messages in the Iron Dames garage, and they are still in the race in 6th position currently as we remain behind the safety car. And those are just the messages coming in from fans here on site. And there are a few fans here, somewhere in the vicinity of 350,000. The capacity sellout crowd again. It's been impossible to buy tickets for this year's Le Mans for a very long time. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. In fact, it's probably likely to be more the case. If you're watching at home and you think, I really must go to Le Mans this year, or at some stage, one year, actually, yes, you really, really must. If you've never been and watched it on telly and thought, oh, that looks like it might be quite fun, obviously, you know, a little bit less now because it's soaking wet. It is enormous fun. My favourite description of Le Mans is one from a Belgian journalist who was not only a great writer, but also won Le Mans outright as a driver and finished on the podium in the Belgian Grand Prix for Ferrari, a man called Paul Frere. And his description, I think, still sums up Le Mans the best possible way. A week-long holiday with like-minded friends, at the end of which they hold a motor race. And if that's not Le Mans, then I don't know what is. It is still the greatest meeting that I go to of people who are passionate about the same thing and beer. So, and French food, and rillettes, and also, I mean, there's so many layers to it. There's so many layers to it, but everybody here, from whatever corner of the globe, from whatever background, education, financial, job, whatever, everybody's got one thing in common. They are slightly nuts about endurance racing, and this is absolutely the zenith of endurance racing. Into the pits comes the AO by TF car that led the field away in LMP2. It's in 6th place at the moment. Alex Quinn bails out. And again, as you suggest, maybe PJ Hyatt has been roused from his slumbers to take over the car. Because yes, if you have a bronze-rated driver in LMP2, particularly LMP2 Pro-Am, or in LMGT3, this is the ideal time to put them in for a stint and burn up some of their minimum drive time. Each bronze-rated driver in these two categories must do at least 6 hours of driving in the race. And although it seems unfair for a man who is paying the bills to be forced to do it behind the safety car, he wants to win the race as much as the pros in the car, perhaps even more so, actually. So
it's all for the greater good.
He will, yes, he will do that. Right, put me in now, and that means when it's green, we can put you guys in, and you'll be quicker then than I will be. So, yeah, let me drive now. It's not the most exciting bit, but if you get to stand on the podium, it's worth it.
I mean, look, I'm getting the red gear a lot if I try and go lower RPM, so the question is that bad for reliability? Should I?
Normally doing, Brandon, so don't worry about the fuel so much, just do what you were doing before.
Okay, are you on the toilet?
No, I'm not. Must be my microphone again.
Okay, it sounds like you're in a in a swimming pool, I don't know, or in the toilet.
That is something I don't think I've ever heard a driver ask his engineer if he's on the loo. Fantastic.
That's brilliant, isn't
So
it?
laid back as well. You know, you're leading Le Mans, you're over halfway, you can't do much because you're behind the safety car, granted, but that's uppermost in Brendan Hartley's mind. Reliability of the car. Next question, are you in the loo?
Are you having a wee?
Yeah.
Are you taking your phone in the toilet with you again?
That's got to be a meme by the end of the next hour, hasn't it?
That is so Brendan Hartley. Yes,
fantastic.
that might overtake Class A drug references as the meme of the day. Interesting. I'm not quite sure what he was doing before and what he's. Presumably he's keeping the RPM low to avoid wheel spin, so going a gear or maybe 2 gears higher up than you might otherwise normally do. But then he's obviously saying at some stage that that's having a detrimental effect. I didn't quite understand what, maybe on the temperature in the radiators or something, because I don't know.
I was just wondering whether it was putting more load through the transmission, and that's why he was concerned about the reliability. Anyway, we'll see.
Looks like the Mustang might be misting up on the inside, which is devoutly not to be wished.
And I think they've just put John Hartshorn into that car. So
like it,
again, with respect, your slower driver, eat up some of his allotted time while you're not squandering the very quick driver.
Absolutely so.
Let's see what other teams do. PJ Hyatt, it was getting back into 14, so he has been released back on track.
Rodrigo Sales being briefed before he gets into the Panis car.
That was another car that very early on in the race needed a new door for it would not shut.
Have we seen Olivier Panis
yes.
during the race?
Yes,
I saw him earlier in the week.
Yeah,
but,
no, he's here. He's been in the garage. He was looking very unhappy about the door problem, you see, earlier on.
Last man to win a Grand Prix for the Ligier team. Still the last Frenchman to win Monaco.
Yes.
Believe. And all-round lovely bloke, unless you're racing against him, as his son will testify.
Right, okay.
Well, Olivier Panis' son, Aurélien, is a racing driver, races in touring cars, but actually a lot of the time I see him racing in the Trophy Andros, the ice racing, and he's a multiple champion there. But very occasionally, Olivier will find the time to go out and race as well. And his elbows are pointier and sharper than I can ever remember them being when he was a professional racing driver. And the fact that it's the lad makes it probably actually exaggerates his aggression in traffic. So he still has a deep competitive streak, Olivier Panis, no question about it at all.
Riding on board with Ian James, who is the man behind the Heart of Racing team, Formula Vauxhall Junior when Peter won the title. Ian went off to America when he couldn't really get the funds to race in the UK and has built up a good career and a good business out there. And this is the view on board from the Aston. And again, he is the bronze-graded driver, so he's put in for this night shift up behind the safety car at the reduced pace.
And Heart of Racing taking over the Northwest AMR Aston Martin entry last year of Paul Dallalana, who did Le Mans a dozen times probably. Dallalana decided just before Spa last year, the second race of the championship, that he was no longer able to commit the time to the series. And Ian James, who'd been racing in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series, gleefully took up the entry. It was still a Northwest AMR car, although it was in Heart of Racing colours. This year, Heart of Racing is the name above the door, and next year, Ian James and Heart of Racing bring Aston Martin to the premier class with the Valkyrie hypercar. So he's very much the driving force of that program. I think it's predominantly him that has reignited that. In the original discussions when hypercar was underway, the Valkyrie was going to be part of it. Aston Martin then decided, in fact, that they were not in a position to pursue that program, and so the rule sets got changed a little. The initial 1,000 horsepower top power limit was reduced, and now so the Valkyrie will be amended from its road car version and considerably down powered to become the Le Mans hypercar. But it will be through the offices of Ian James and the insistence pretty much of Ian James that the program comes to fruition, and Heart of Racing will be responsible for running it as well.
So the rain continues to fall and the safety car remains on track. 174 laps done, 12 and a half hours completed. So we are just into the second half of the race and drivers awaiting their next stint. Interesting that you've got a guy in his racing boots for the Panis racing team, Rodrigo Salas, standing in a puddle. That sometimes they might stand on a mat to keep the soles of their race boots dry. Sometimes they'll have overshoes that they kick off at the last moment. But that doesn't seem awfully sensible, standing in the wet. Another driver change going on within LMP2. Look there, the sole of the boots being dried as Nico Veroni gives way in 183. And presumably Francois Perrodo will take over again as the lower graded driver.
Yeah, I would certainly think so. Again, Francois is a man who will do what it takes for the team to try and get them to win. He's won multiple times the championship in the World Endurance Championship. He's no longer racing in the World Endurance Championship. He's doing LMP2 in the European Le Mans Series. But again, yeah, he'll be putting himself in the firing line and getting some serious safety car action. It's 4:33 and the rain is projected to continue until 6 a.m. So it could be at least another 90 minutes of this. The race director Eduardo Freitas and all the marshals on the ground will be in constant communication as to how wet it is, whether it's drying out or not, and of course they will be looking at the weather map. The zebra at the front, zebra, potato of the 183 car, the black and white, and on the 83 Ferrari as well, that has been running in those colours. And those are the colours of Francois Perrodo. The black and white flag is the Breton flag, and he uses that on his car all the time. It's 83 normally. It was 83 when he raced in WC, in GTE AM, in Ferraris, and also in LMP2. And it's 83 when he runs in the European Le Mans Series. But somebody else came in and snitched 83 in the yellow Ferrari. So now he's 183 here in this LMP2 entry. Let's hear from Cadled's Alex Palou.
Yeah, it's terrible now. Lots of rain, cannot see shit behind the tires. Neville will go at speed for aquaplane everywhere. Terrible.
Very good, very good. Please give us this feedback every start-finish. So Alex, and that was it with the bad news. Now some good news. Some cars in front of us will have to book rather sooner than later. I think they have like 3-4 laps left. That will move us up back to the position we were. But then once the pass around is done, we'll be in the pack with the leaders, and we have everything to fight for still. Still not over yet. Keep your head up.
Alex Palou talking about how treacherous it is and how at speed there will be lots of aquaplaning. So conditions, and you can understand from race control why they're doing this, to minimise the risk, because even at this speed drivers are complaining about how difficult it is to drive. At race pace it would be virtually impossible.
And look at the puddle there, the apex of the left-hand part of Indianapolis. Every car goes through it. You can see the water being moved around and then swirling back in. And below where the camera is, the bank runs down to the track at Indianapolis from the spectator banking. So that's sort of funneling more water down towards that apex as well. Of course, those curbs, the blue and yellow Dragon's Teeth curbs, those are going to be wetter than the track for some while as well. Cadillac fuel man there getting a little bit of shut-eye. He's come well prepared, hasn't he, using the balaclava as a bit of an eye mask. And so far he's been exempt from any tomfoolery among his teammates.
Give it time. Give it time.
He clearly can do a decent Chinese burn, otherwise I'm sure he would be falling prey to some prankage. But we could be in for still another 90 minutes of this, and that is going to be a long, long hold.
It's also worth just bearing in mind the responsibility in all of this of the safety car crew, because they have got to go at a pace that is slow enough for safety, but quick enough for race cars behind, and the pressure is on them not to make a mistake, because these conditions are terrible. Now, the race cars, by definition, are going at a reduced pace, but the safety car is neither an GT3 nor an LMP2 nor a hypercar. So that is still having to be driven actually very hard in horrible conditions.
But yeah, not as hard as it would be in the dry, but yeah, and it is a four-wheel drive Porsche 911, but you can see that there are other issues than the water outside for Romain Grosjean.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back to my motorhome. I don't want to get too much more wet, so don't show me.
We were all joking out here. It's a good thing we're not camping.
Yes, or in a caravan right next to the stage.
Well, the concerts are finished now, long ago. I think the stage has been dismantled even, so we'll be fine to get some kit eventually.
The stage has not been dismantled.
Oh, is it not?
Yeah, but the gig has finished. Yes.
It's getting colder and colder under there.
Simple Minds have headed off. Yeah, under a warm blanket. I mean, it is not warm here this year. It is just not. Even when the sun's out, all it does is take the chill off. I can't tell you how many times I've been cold and had to put on yet another layer here at Le Mans this year, which is very unusual. Yeah, I'm setting my shorts and a polo shirt and a fleece, and I've only just taken my body warmer off, and we're indoors.
It is not the warmest of Junes.
And we've turned the aircon off, and the windows are shut, and the door is shut. It is not the warmest of Junes. It was warmer for the Vancat. Moto here in April. Definitely was, and drier, by bitter at night. In fact, it did get down to about 3 degrees of air temperature overnight, but it was at least dry. Often it's wetter than an otter's pocket, and when you've only got two wheels, that makes it much less fun again. Clément Mathieu bails out of the 34 into Europol car, takes his seat insert with him. And a smaller seat insert going in, and this is for Kuba Schmachowski.
Winner last year in class, gets strapped in.
There you go, says Kuba on his helmet with the red and white of his native Poland. Into Europol, by the way, not some Europe-wide police force, that's Interpol. They are a large bakery concern based in Poland. In fact, a very, very large bakery based right on the outskirts of Warsaw, but they have been involved. And here he is in the car that won Le Mans last year.
New wets then go on to the Inter-Europol competition entry of Kuba Schmachowski, ready to go back out. Just adjustments at the rear, and they're going to take the rear section off because presumably, oh no, I was going to say a new one will go on. It won't. They're just going to reseat it.
It wasn't quite seated on the right rear. You can see where the split is. There's like a band of black goo. That's where it was overlapped. So he's had a little tap from somebody. It's just popped it off the mounting pegs.
Yeah.
And that means drag and the potential possibly for more damage if they ever get back up to speed. But the car that's third in the class car. C, that is currently going into the Porsche curves. So at the moment the teams are going around with the car, try and maintain the same distance apart. So the safety car drivers and Eduardo Freitas, the race director, will have predetermined what speed they run at. So they all circle around.
Might be tricking myself into optimism in saying all of that.
Well, it was, and I might open the back door. Pan to the left, left. Smiley face on the left-hand side has just turned his back on us. That is Nick Minassian, the team principal of EDEX Sport. And again, ex-racer, ex-endurance racer, ex-single-seater racer, but absolutely lovely chap. So, two racing drivers. Nick Minassian keeps claiming he hasn't retired. A couple of years ago in a European Le Mans Series race, actually had to substitute in and drove the car as well as managing the team when one of the drivers was indisposed. and the other team manager, who is racing for, who am I thinking?
Nicolas Lapierre.
Exactly, for Alpine, no longer now with his Alpine hat on, but Nico Lapierre runs Cool Racing, who have their cars, or two cars, nicely surrounding everybody else in LMP2. The 37 car is leading, and the 47 car, which has just pitted, is the last car running in, oh, it may not be actually, Ben Hanley still circulating in the number 23 car. Oh, look at this. First class surface. Manthey Racing, Manthey EMA. Yeah, please do not disturb sign there. No, I don't want breakfast. Don't wake me up until we land.
But a can of Red Bull is exactly what might get you through the next few hours of the race. So the Manthey team,
oh, I don't.
We've got cars first and second. Trying to see the funny side of all of this, and at least for the moment the pressure is off, because they can't do very much else while we're under the safety car.
No, and really for the crews, these few vital minutes grabbing a bit of rest are absolutely the lifeblood of what keeps them going through the race. You're looking there at a young man whose job is dog's body. There's always somebody who wants to get into the trade who is the tyre guy, and there he is just presetting the pressures in the tyres. Normally that would be done when they are hot and in the tyre oven. Those don't exist anymore in endurance racing, and as a result it is just a cold pressure being set, and that will be, as we heard Rob Bell describing, dependent on how wet the track is and what speed they're doing. Romain Grosjean has bailed out of the Iron Lynx Lamborghini. Matteo Cairoli taking us over. Andrea Caldarelli, their third driver, another one of the rookies in this race. 47 rookies in 62 cars. Some of them were all rookie combinations. There are a number of cars that have 2 out of 3 rookies as well, and they're not entirely all in the slower, smaller categories either. We've got quite a number of rookies in our hypercar class.
And it's amazing to find that some of them are rookies, because they've been around sports car, mainly GT racing, for so long. You kind of assume they must have done Le Mans before, but it's not the case.
And again, rookie error from Matteo Cairoli. Look at the top of the picture. Look at the air tube that's coming in from the air vent. You can see in the corrugations there is water sitting there. We saw the water dribbling into the Cadillac and getting Sebastian Bourdais' leg nice and cold and wet. Matteo Cairoli in the pit lane exit queue, luckily, because he'd completely forgotten to plug his helmet in, which means no driver identifier and no radio. So he will be going, radio check, radio check. Why is nobody answering? Oh, drat!
Yes.
Seen it still attached to the roof and taking it off and plugged it in. And the
Well,
reason it's attached to the roof is it's got a bit of Velcro. Stick it on the roof, keep it out of the way while the belts are being done, everything else of that. And then last thing you do before you pull off, plug yourself into the car. He had forgotten, but here he is at the front of the queue, waiting to join the next safety car through, which will be safety car A.
And that was the same Lamborghini we saw Romain Grosjean getting wet in. He has now pitted, he's bailed, he's gone to get dry and warm and out on track. Flags are still being waved, although it's rather hard to see them, to say the least. Thankfully these days you have the lighting panels around the circuit, and as Romain Grosjean has stepped out of one car, 63, Mirko Bortolotti is still at the wheel of the sister car, but Daniel Kvyat, who was in the gravel earlier on in the race, he is ready to take position.
So tell me something about the race. How is the situation? Who is first, second? Let's talk a bit, because this is so...
Yeah, okay, no problem. So at the moment, first is Toyota number 8, okay. They are in... wait, just a second. They are in safety car C, so 2 safety car behind us. Followed by Porsche number 6, who is right behind them on safety car C as well. Then we have Toyota number 7, which is right in front of you in the same safety car, third in the race than us. And then we have 83, which is P5, and is the first car in the next safety car behind us. Safety car B. So we have Jota, as we said, the Cadillac, then sister car, then the other Cadillac, and the Porsche. That's the top 10.
So there you go, that's a rundown for Miguel Molina's benefit and everybody else's really on the state of play. But it's a valid point, that, because he's been behind the safety car now since 3:45, so over an hour. We've had another hour-long safety car period, and it ain't ending yet. He's lost kind of his bearings as to where he is in the race, what's going on around him, who is he fighting, where are they? That's quite important for a driver to know.
He's bored rigid, isn't he?
Yes.
He's absolutely bored rigid, and because he hasn't got his phone there to phone home, he's got his radio to phone home instead. Again, the cool racing car there, having the inside of the door screen cleaned of condensation. While they're moving, even relatively slowly, there is a little bit of airflow, but of course, as soon as you stop, the heat of the driver's body, and he will still hopefully be relatively hot, just heats up the tiny amount of air in the cockpit, and the condensation on the inside of the cold screen means it can be pretty hard to see. Photographer's getting some very sexy shots in all of this. All of the reflections and the beads of water and everything else are going to look very nice on the cars. Of course, it is pretty wretched for the drivers. 63 Lamborghini getting ready for another pit stop. Again, you can see the driver with the cool seat insert, so that mesh there in the center. These cool seats are a new innovation, extremely light. A full seat for a Formula E car weighs 100 grams, whereas a normal seat made of foam with gaffer tape on it and stuff will weigh 2 kilos.
Wow.
So not only is it better for driver comfort, and a cool driver, baby, is an efficient driver because he doesn't overheat and therefore his brain still works, and keeping the core temperature of the body down is really, really important. But secondly, it's a near 2 kilo weight saving on a standard seat. So Lamborghini using them, the AF Corsa Ferrari team, the factory Ferrari team are using them as well. And I sense that those seats are going to become increasingly popular in single-seater racing and in Formula racing. The man behind the company is a former race engineer from a number of categories, but in fact spent quite a lot of time engineering Chunga Montero and World Touring cars, and has designed these seats. They are carved from a solid block of special foam, all fully FIA approved. All the adhesives and the covering, again, all FIA approved, as they must be for safety purposes. They're extremely flammable, but it looks like a major innovation. Lighter than the standard seat, more adjustable and more comfortable than the standard seat, more interchangeable than the standard seat, and it keeps the drivers cool. Today, less of an issue in these conditions, but it's certainly been proved to be a benefit by the Ferrari drivers, and the Lamborghini guys have embraced that technology as well.
So 10 to 5 in the morning here at Le Mans. Toyota leads, Porsche leads Toyota, and again having a look at what the mechanics are up to as they try and grab a little bit of rest, and even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes of sleep, it's better than nothing, because you never know when you might be called upon. And as the drivers are still behind the safety car, it is, as I say, Toyota, Porsche, Toyota, then Ferrari 4th, Ferrari 5th, and Porsche in 6th place. This safety car period now has gone on for just under an hour and 10 minutes, and it is all to do with the rain and the fact that there's a lot of standing water. And it's one thing to be able to attack the track when it is in daylight, but it is still very, very dark indeed, and therefore it's just too dangerous to let the cars go. Renger van der Zande is in number 3 Cadillac right now.
Okay, man, we're still here. No update from race control. Radar looks like it's gonna clear up in the next few minutes for only a short period of time, and then there is another part of the storm coming.
Well, that's great news, thinks Renger van der Zande. So more rain in for the morning.
Pretty miserable, isn't it? Well, as daylight starts to cast its fingers over the horizon, visibility levels will come up, but that doesn't make the track any drier. The problem is, of course, the more rain that falls, the more has to be thrown up in the air by all the tyres as they go by, and that creates all sorts of other issues. There are many days, David, when I think, oh, it'd be nice to be a cameraman and be able to work on various different jobs. And then, of course, I think about it, I think, no, you're either being frozen, blown off a mountain, or drowned with rain, or burned by the sun. Pity the poor cameraman there on the cherry picker above the straight, I have to say. Our boys and girls in the camera crews and in the rest of the TV crew do a sterling job throughout the entire 10-day Le Mans period. We at least are being paid, whereas the marshals, who do an even more sterling and even more important job perhaps, are not being paid, and they do this just for the love of being close to the racing. I feel at times like this, it's gritty determination to stick it out rather than the actual love of the sport that keeps them at it. This is
possibly so.
This is possibly not the best weather. They're all wrapped up to the nines, probably exhausted, probably freezing cold with water dripping off their noses. So God bless them all, men and women in orange who keep motorsport alive.
And as ever at this event, there are lots of British marshals that make the pilgrimage every year and are on post with their French colleagues, which is always good to see.
Certainly are. And meanwhile, Jean-Eric Verne limbering up. You saw the Peugeot crew limbering up as well. In comes Mikkel Jensen. So 93 car onto pit road. Jeff will take over. And Nico Muller, the third driver of that, will remain faster bobos, somewhere getting a little bit of rest. Having three drivers does mean that there is the opportunity to get a little bit of rest and a little bit of sleep. Some drivers don't manage to go to sleep, but actually the resting the brain is as important perhaps as actually closing the eyes and sending up some Zs. So Jeff, hopefully feeling refreshed, puts his back insert in, so he's using the same seat base, and this is a more common setup now, is it use the same seat base for a number of drivers and they put their own back insert in. Danny Kvyat, well, last time I saw him come out of the pits in the Cadillac, he went out the pit lane straight into the gravel at the first corner. Hopefully that will not be repeated this time. But both Lamborghinis are still going. So the crew from Sant'Agata to Bolognese, I think at this stage will be relatively happy with the way that the cars are performing. They don't look slow and they are still going.
They had a really good run on the first shower of rain because they got the call right on tyres, and that catapulted them up the order, but they've never had the same pace as they're a bit like the Peugeots. They're in their own battle, and they are still going, and they're gaining places as others hit problems, but they don't have the outright pace of, say, a Toyota or a Porsche or a Ferrari. So the result here is going to come to them by the misfortune of others, not on their own pace, sad to say.
Well, that's absolutely true, but again, it is a brand new car being run by a brand new team. This is not a race team, this is a test team that has now done 3 races. This is not strictly fair because Iron Links do have racing experience, but they've had to grow a lot. And exactly as we saw with Peugeot in their first year, as we saw with Porsche in their first year, Ferrari in their first year, is that they will get incrementally better at quite a rate running the cars, and running them for 24 hours here will give you as much information basically as almost the rest of the season will, just in one weekend. So that's, you know, we saw the difference that actually over winter made to Penske's operating the Porsche, their understanding of it. These cars are complicated, and when they're brand new and the setup data is basically a white sheet of A4 paper with nothing written on it, then you have a lot to learn, and the quicker you can learn it, the more you're keeping the car close to its potential operating window, and it will go quicker and quicker.
And Lamborghini also, early in the season, parted ways with its motorsport head, Giorgio Sana, so there's been a little bit of regrouping in there and just making sure the direction is the correct one to travel in. And more than anything, it is just great to have the Lamborghini brand on the grid. Graham and I were saying earlier on in the course of the race that having one Italian brand on the grid is good, and it takes you back in a way to the Group C Lancia days. But to have two Italian brands is something we haven't had for a long, long, long time in top-level sports car racing.
Two in the Premier class, and of course the biggest Italian brand of all in the GT category, one V Rossi Esquire.
Indeed.
And you know, much as the Ferrari hypercar team draws a big crowd and Lord does it, that is overshadowed by the crowd around the doctor. Whenever they go into the pits, whenever there's an autograph session, Valentino Rossi is one of those names. He has one of those names that transcends sport and is a household name just because he's valet and he's so famous. It's a Roger Federer. Whether you know tennis or not, you know Roger Federer.
But you don't even need to know the Rossi name. You know the number.
Yeah.
You know, how many white vans have you overtaken on the motorway with a little 46 sticker on them? And that's worldwide. That's not just in the UK. For us, it's absolutely global.
And for American audiences, 3 would be the direct equivalent. Everybody knows 3 from The Intimidator, from Dale Earnhardt. And still, you will see, and Valentino Rossi is retired from motorcycle racing, and you're absolutely right. You see 46 all over the place, and you will see the 3 still on lots of license tags and lots of trucks and lots of cars, because people don't forget their heroes.
No, exactly. Well, as the pit lane opens and the next raft of cars is released, we are heading towards 5 a.m. and we are also therefore heading towards 13 hours of the race having been completed. So as you said about an hour ago, we've broken the back of this now. We're almost there.
Yep.
The teams and probably race control as well, desperate for a bit of daylight, because that is going to make life a little bit safer, and they can then start to think about restarting the race, going green once more.
The real advantage here that they did not have 2 weeks ago at the Nürburgring is, and I'm really possibly going to regret saying this out loud now, is that we don't have fog, and that would bring things to a juddering halt, because if marshals can't see the next marshals, then we red flag this until they can. So the Nürburgring 24 hours became the Nürburgring 7.5 hours 2 weeks ago. Fortunately, there is not that visibility problem, so although the safety car remains out for weather, we are still able to circulate and keep the cars going, and that means that we're able, hopefully, to be able to bring you some entertainment as well. Renger van der Zande aboard the number 3 Cadillac Racing entry. This is one of our LMDH cars, a mandatory rear hybrid drive. It's a standard part on the car. Let's hear from HORAS Team Jota. No, not hearing from HORAS Team Jota. Not quite sure why we're not hearing Callum. So HORAS Team Jota, that passed us by. We're stage 1 of the safety car procedure is keeping everybody behind the safety cars, tidying up the problem or waiting for the problem to go away, in this case weather. Then they will all be, when we're getting ready to go green, they'll all be joined together behind one safety car. Stage 3, any car in any of the 3 classes that has its class leader behind it in the queue will be waved around, and once the wave arounds join up and we're all in one long lap, one long line, we will look at releasing the safety car queue all in one go and going green once more. Shutting the door on the 59 McLaren. It fires up nicely and away it goes. McLaren making their debut in the World Endurance Championship this season. There's some cracking hair going on there, isn't there? And I don't mean Emma, the PR at the back of the garage. Oh my Lord, there's your winner, ladies and gentlemen. He wins the meat prize. Wow, that's beautiful. And when I say beautiful, of course I mean Absolutely appalling. Algarve Pro Garage. Little bit of batak being done by the mechanics. This is normally used for hand-to-eye coordination, but being used for entertainment during a long red flag purpose instead. There's going to be a temporary silence. Bear with. And we're bound to headset. Where David Anderson was, and welcome back to the booth, Anthony Davidson, as you join us 90 minutes into a safety car period for wet weather.
What have I missed, Martin?
It's rained, and we've been behind the safety car for an hour and a half.
I thought I was sleeping well with the silence out there. You always know something's, well, not wrong, but not quite going to plan when you know you can sleep well at Le Mans.
Well, it has been a long and slightly tedious period for the drivers and crews, but the crews at least are getting a little bit of rest. Eduardo Freitas there in the race control, not resting yet. That's not going to happen until about 8 this evening. In the white shirt, our assistant race director. There's Lisa, whose voice you hear in the automated countdowns to full course yellows. She is also the other assistant race director for the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Can see another little lull in the radar, and then probably some more rain around turn 7, then another little lull, and then rain everywhere.
Okay. I'm actually being serious. I don't think I can stay in here for, like, after another pit stop. The problem I'm having is I'm cramping up on my legs. Because I'm not using my legs. I've got to keep them off the pedals, and I'm starting to cramp on my knees. So I'm just saying I don't think I can last another hour or hour and a half or whatever. Just so you're aware. If it stays safety car like this, I'm going to start struggling.
Understood. Don't think that would be very good for us, but I'll have a look.
Wow, what about that?
What's going to be worse for them is if he does start cramping up, because even at these speeds, it's going to be hard to drive. Have seen a couple of drivers getting out of prototypes and really stiff-leggedly trying to stand up straight. And that's very much, first of all, it's freezing cold. Secondly, as he said, I'm having to keep my feet off the pedals. So he's not got his feet on the floor like you would do in your car, because there isn't one, there's no room there. He's having to lift his legs up, keep his legs lifted. Sit in your chair at home, lift your heels off the carpet, off the floor, keep them there. Right, now do that for another hour. It's not going to be survivable. And honestly, if he's saying, I don't think I can do this, what he means is, I absolutely can't do this, and I'm trying to just bear up, but you're going to have to sort this out. It might not be ideal for us. No, it's not ideal for us, but you're going to have to do something. They're going to have to change him.
It's Brendan's one of the tallest drivers out there, and shares the car with Sebastian Buemi, Rio HORAS, and when you do your seat fit, you will do your seat fit with the knowledge that you're going to be flat out quite a lot, and so your foot is your right foot especially is in a very different position most of the time to when you're completely off the pedal. So I should imagine it's yeah, when you're a taller driver and the angle of your knee and your shin compared to where your ankle ends up is very different compared to if you're a shorter driver like myself, where you have a straighter leg basically.
Yeah.
With that compromise of reaching the pedals, your knee will take up a lot of that. You know, with the angle of attack, will mitigate that. So actually, for the shorter drivers, it's easier. You cramp up less in these kind of situations. So poor old Brendan, he's a super fit athlete, and he's probably never experienced this kind of situation before.
And you get cramp in odd places. So
yeah,
maybe not the hamstring, maybe not the calf, but the shin, the front of the leg, particularly. You know what I mean? And that's, you cannot stretch that out. And that is not happening.
Also, without the
Can't stretch
G-force
it out.
going through your body, when you pull the G-force, you're resisting against that, of course, and your legs and your glutes very much so take the brunt of that a lot of the time. So a bit like when you're in a kayak and you're wedged against the sides and you're feeling the whole boat move around, and you feel it through your body that way. You do the same thing in the car, in a racing car. So without that G-force going at such slow speed, it's like just sitting in your car on the motorway for a 4 or 5 hour journey when you start cramping up. You're desperate to get out.
But on a bench, not in a comfortable seat, because there's no comfort padding in a racing car.
Well, it's like when you're in your road car. Imagine not being able to move an inch.
No, I know.
So Kevin, I know it's a bit boring, but we need to be in third gear at 70 and second gear at 60. If not, we are going to the clutch.
Oh no, not the clutch as well.
It is everything. It's the clutch, it's state of charge, it's keeping the hybrid up. I mean, never mind trying to keep temperature in the tyres, that's absolutely not happening. We have seen almost the entire field changing from one set of wets onto a fresh set of wets already in this safety car period, and we can't be that far away from all of them starting to need fuel again. 12 laps normally at full throttle, which is 75% of the lap. 15, I mean, they're not going to make 20 laps behind the safety car, but they'll make 15. But we're getting to the stage where, and the rain is due to go on for another hour at least, potentially. They are all going to have to stop for fuel again. And Brendan is going, you cannot leave me in. I don't care what it does to the driver strategy, you can't leave me in. And they're going to need to put new wet tyres on the car as well.
Kevin Estre, basically what the engineer was saying there was, if you can't go slow enough in third gear, and if you're in the trainer cars and you go slower, we need to be in that gear, third or second gear, and the idea is to save as much fuel as possible.
Yeah.
If that's not possible, you're going to need to press the clutch to go into EV mode.
And the more times you do that,
well, no, that's fine for the electronics and the car. It is built to do that. Drive around on EV if you need to.
Obviously, Takeshi Kimura's engineer is saying, "Hey, wave, Takeshi, you're on camera."
That is hilarious. I've never seen that before.
And of course, back home, it's what's the time now here? It's 5 in the morning. It's 5 in the afternoon. Yeah, 3 in the afternoon. So prime time Sunday afternoon back home in Japan. Family watching.
What's he pointing forwards and waiting?
I don't know. So Takeshi Kimura, the car guy. That's normally the yellow livery on the car. Yeah, it's misting up inside the car quite significantly. But again, Anthony, I mean, you've just walked in. It is raining. It's persistently raining. And this is actually one of the lighter periods that we've had in the last hour. It's not been absolute torrents, but it has been just raining. And the track is getting wetter and wetter and wetter.
Scooted in, not walked. And the most miserable experience of my life. Scooting along in rain, chucking it down, and then of course you think, oh wow, yeah. As soon as I opened the front door and walked, I thought, this is going to be a mission, and it is for these guys as well and girls. Once they get going, finally it will be, it's a proper mission for them once when you have to deal with the wettest conditions by far that we've had in the 24 hours of Le Mans so far.
Well, we've seen all sorts of problems. Cars misting up on the inside because there's no airflow at this speed. We were just watching in Romain Grosjean, I think, in his Lamborghini. They've got an air tube coming in from a roof vent. What comes down roof vent air tubes? Water. So every time he started to pick up speed, it would dribble down and make him wet, and is dripping all over the inside of the car. And of course, these cars are not waterproofed, and nor are their electrics. So what you don't want is water spilling around inside the car. The Iron Lynx Lamborghini is in, number 60 car. It's had a problem quite a while ago, didn't it? That boss Claudio Schiavone looped the car around on the exit of the second chicane, clattered the barriers. Not really badly, actually. He managed to get it going again and didn't lose too much time in the garage. But the car is still running. And actually, now trying to find him in the order. Why can I not see him? Oh, there he is. Franck Pereira in the car, and it is currently in 19th place in LMP2 and GT3.
Topping up with oil as well. That was that red canister going into the back of that Lamborghini.
Well, let's hear from the team. What do they have to say?
Do fuel and then oil. Fuel and oil.
So the oil bomb going in, and that's, again, pressurized canister. If you remember your dad's soda siphon, it's that sort of thing. You plug it in, and it squirts the oil into the engine's catch tank, and that's an instant top-up. So instead of having to unscrew a little thing and glug, 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 pour it in like you do with your road car, Hertz team Jota Garage, because those guys and the 38 team who rebuilt that car over a day and a half basically didn't go back to the hotel for nearly 3 days. Those are the guys who are going to need every bit of rest they can possibly get at the moment while the safety car remains out. Safety car came out over an hour and a half ago and remains out, and it is entirely weather related. Some fairly substantial rain sweeping across the circuit, and in the dark conditions, Eduardo Freitas deciding that putting out the safety cars was the way to go, and we have been under safety car for quite some while.
Yeah, Oliver Rasmussen, I can see in the car 38. He's on 18 laps of this stint so far. Rather than the usual 12 that we see in dry conditions, and no sign of stopping yet. I wonder what the energy levels are of the hypercars, at least,
and the drivers
yeah.
in their boots. I mean, some of these guys, Miguel Molina, we heard on the radio about 10 or 15 minutes ago. He's the sort of guy who you just know the minute he gets in a road car, he's on the phone to somebody because he was so bored. Talk to me about the race. What's happening in the race? Where are we? What's going on? And there's nothing to tell you, but they ran down the top 10 for him.
How's your strippers going?
And there's nothing to tell you, but they ran.
I'm trying to think a lot on different stuff to keep me awake.
Okay. Right on cue. Right on cue, Martin.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, you know, and that is the thing, you know, when you're driving a racing car, Anthony, the adrenaline fires your synapses off at a rate that never happens at any other time. It's that massive influx of adrenaline, the fight or flight instinct that allows you to drive the cars as quickly as you do, to react so instantly to every input that your body is feeling and that you're sensing. And without that, your energy levels go through your boots. I mean, we heard Kevin Estre talking around the lap going, oh yeah, turn 5, moderately wet, use the dry line. Turn 6, little bit wetter, use the wet line. Turn 10, that's quite dry, use the dry line. I thought what he was doing was chatting on the radio to his teammate who was due to take the car over, but no, he was just doing it to keep himself interested, or for the audience, or for to keep himself interested, or for the audience, or for, I mean, who knows what. But you know, it's the opposite of counting sheep.
Watch it. It's up to 7.5 seconds now between the top two. We need to keep an eye on Lothara's pace, because got to say, Peter, really, that the stars in number 6 Porsche of the weekend thus far have been Vanthor and Estre. They've been quicker than Lothara. Maybe not by much, but they've been a bit quicker.
Yeah, I think what you get with Andre Lothar is a very safe pair of hands. I'm going to knock on wood when I say that, because the commentators curse, but he's won this race 3 times. He's the elder driver in the car now, I think 42 years old, so he might not have the out-and-out speed of the others, but he's safe with the car.
Sure. Away goes the Hertz Team Jota entry. Phil Hansen at the wheel of it, who, Rob Bell, is another very good sports car driver, Phil Hansen. Maybe he hasn't yet really had the recognition he deserves, but he's done a lot of miles and he's had a lot of good results.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of come through LMP3, LMP2, and looks like he's been given a chance, you know, and he's probably come through not the standard route that you would come through, but he seems to be making a name for himself and is, you know, well liked within the Jota team.
You're riding on board with Jack Aitken at the moment, who is still behind the wheel of 311. Every time I look, he seems to be in it. He's kind of welded himself in, but that car lost time in the last couple of hours. It's down in 14th place and it's fallen off the lead lap. Goes now through the first chicane. He's still chasing a Peugeot. This time it's Paul Di Resta's car. He got past Mikkel Jensen on that last pit stop, but now he's going to set off in pursuit of another of the ex-Formula 1 drivers on the grid, Paul Di Resta.
We saw a good fight earlier on with, I think it was Aitken at the wheel then of the 311, and we were kind of picking out that for whatever reason, they just don't seem to have the straight line speed of some of the other cars. And we know the Cadillacs are fast in the straight line. We've seen overtaking from, say, the number 2 car. I just don't think, maybe a different setup on the 311 with a wing. It's hard to know, but yeah, he's been behind this car for ages now and just unable to make a move.
And he's not on the lead lap, of course, so that's the other problem. The other caddies are, though, so I think they're still in the mix, and I don't know, I still think they're almost a dark horse for it. They're still in the mix, but just behind the more established hypercars from previous years. But yeah, all looking good. And
I think they're going to need a fair slice of luck in perhaps, you know, a couple of the cars ahead of them having issues to come up, but you know, pace-wise, the Toyota, the Ferraris, they seem to be the better ones. The Porsche number 6, it's up there, as you say. So looking at Andre Lotter's last lap now, so he's 7/10 slower than Sebastian Buemi. So he's got himself up to speed.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, and I think you're right, Peter, in what you say about the Cadillacs. On pure pace, no. But with a bit of bad luck and dramas for one or two others, and maybe there are some more penalties lurking in the system somewhere, could well be done. Look at the top speeds presented to you by Motul. The fastest out of hypercar is number 4 Porsche Felipe Nasr, and you can compare and contrast that with LMP2 and GT3, in which Porsche again tops the speed traps.
The other factor, of course, is you can guarantee there'll be more rain before the end of this race, which will mix things up. I just hope it's not as I'm walking back to my caravan.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's again not doing what the forecast said, which was meant to be just a wet race, and that last shower that we had gave drama, but we haven't heard anything about rain. Nobody's telling us that it's on its way, or, you know, nothing.
Yeah, and it's amazing, we're not nowhere near halfway through yet.
No.
You know, it's yeah, it's going to be, there's a lot of action to come, a lot of you know, tired drivers, cars get a little bit worn through the race. You know, there's going to be unpredictability still lurking around the corner, I think.
And as we've seen from some of the cars, it takes a split second, a little bit sideways, and suddenly the car snaps and you're in the wall. It causes a safety car or big damage to a barrier that needs to be fixed, and you know, so many things can happen.
So we've had 10 hours and 3 minutes of racing here at Le Mans. Race-leading car, Sebastian Buemi's number 8 Toyota Gazoo Racing entry, 144 laps done, and he is 10 seconds clear of Andre Lotterer in the pole sitting. Number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsports entry, with the second of the Toyotas, Kamui Kobayashi at the wheel of number 7 in 3rd place. Ferrari 4th, Antonio Fuoco, Cadillac 5th, Earl Bamber, and Ferrari 6th, the so-called privateer entry, Robert Schwarzman at the wheel of the car, that has led probably more laps than anything else in this race, after really good strategy calls by the AF Corsa team operating that car during the wetter parts of the race. 83 led at the end of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th hours of the race. Every time, of course, there's a round of pit stops, the order becomes somewhat jumbled, and at the moment we've got the leading 9 cars on the lead lap.
It's really cool, and GT just looking had the GT3 battle as well. At one point in the last stint, the battle for fourth was between 4 cars, all within 2 seconds of each other, the whole pack. And then there was that incident with the Saucy car, which was quite a big hit, actually. I'm surprised there wasn't any damage. You know, he seemed to have to take to the curb, and then he did hit the Ferrari with, you know, reasonable ferocity. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think the GT3 battle seems to be that it's been split with sort of a safety pit stop strategy. So some are pitting halfway through the stint compared to the others. So it might well. We'll see how that pans out towards the end of the race.
We will indeed. Gregoire Cersei has just made another pit stop, so they might have checked for damage in that, but McLaren is back on track. You're riding with Klaus Bachler, who is currently 3rd in class, and Kelvin van der Linde, who started from the pit lane, is just up the road in that Lexus for 2nd, so there's a battle developing here.
Yeah, and I don't think we've heard the last of this Gregoire Cersei incident, because
you're right.
I'm sure they're looking at that, and I would expect some kind of penalty. At the end of the day, Jordan Taylor was minding his own business, and the mistake was from Cersei, so you would expect some kind of drive-through of some description.
Be handy to see it on board, because the view that we've got is kind of at the end of the incident, if that makes sense. We didn't actually see the reason that was caused.
So that was for position, wasn't it? That was Klaus Bachler going by Kelvin van der Linde, but he's missed the corner, so I think he might be losing that again.
This is for 2nd in LMGT3. Porsche ahead, but only just. Kelvin van der Linde, the South African, another rookie in the race, comes up to have a go, and I think he's gone back past, certainly got the LMP2 car going through the traffic as well. Wait to get a better shot, but I think the Lexus has retaken the place.
No,
I think
he hasn't.
I think he stayed ahead. I think Bachler stayed ahead.
And whether he should give up the place because he went off the road, you could say that was kind of gaining an advantage.
He's not giving that back.
No.
Not without being prompted.
In the dark, no one saw it.
That is the thing. Under the cover of darkness, you can get away with a bit more.
So, having cleared the Lexus, then he's only 4 seconds back off Maurice Scheuring in the Manthey EMA car. So that's one garage, Manthey Pure Racing. So their car's up to 2nd. And the way that Bachler is going, and the experience that Klaus Bachler has got, shouldn't be long, I would have thought, before he gets onto the back of Maurice Scheuring. There is the Lexus, which is back ahead. Told you, he's done it, got back ahead. So, correct all that. It is Porsche, Lexus, Porsche once more, and Kelvin van der Linde is not going to be a pushover.
No, he's got to do it all again, hasn't he? Bachler's back on him again straight away.
Bachler's back on him.
Yeah, he is. He is. So yeah, let's see how that develops. But Bachler does look quick though. He looks on the move, and that Porsche looks like he's got quite good top speed.
So towards Indianapolis they come, and he's back ahead. So back into 2nd place now goes Klaus Bachler. Kelvin van der Linde, I think, will be disappointed he's lost a place, but in a way heartened that they could run at the Porsche pace and still be in the mix for a class podium right now.
And now he just needs to try and stay on his bumper. So the Ferrari behind is not for position, but he looks racy as well. Who's that Ferrari behind him?
I was wondering whether it wasn't one of the Corvettes, actually.
I thought it was a Ferrari.
No, you're probably right, but we'll have a look in a moment when they come back through the shot. I think it is a Ferrari that's got...
Is that Jordan? Is that Jordan Taylor?
Yeah, I think it is. Back up and running. GT3, Maurice Scheuring then ahead of Klaus Bachler, and because of the squabbling, what was a 4.4 second gap is up to 6.2 now. So Klaus Bachler needs to break away from van der Linde and then set off in pursuit of the same type of car, but operated by a slightly different stable, and see what he can do about the class lead.
Got the best part of 2 seconds now in front, so he looks like he's broken the toe.
And at Cadillac, you have to make your own amusements and keep yourselves awake. The Iron Dames likewise. And where you can just relax before you have to leap back into action, take the opportunity.
I think in that situation, you never want to be the first one to fall asleep, do you?
No, true enough. I think you need more people to make a proper Mexican wave, but, you know, something to do for the cameras. So, an example of the pit crews, how they have to occupy themselves, what they're doing, and catching a bit of light relief between pit stops.
So that Ferrari is actually starting to catch the Porsche again, but it's not for position.
No.
So who could it be?
It's got to be Jordan Taylor, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be.
We haven't got that many Ferraris left, really, within LMGT3. There's only the GR racing car, which is Mike Wainwright, who I wouldn't have said is as quick as the people around him. So, and Sally Yolic's car isn't circulating anymore. Rob?
No idea.
Right, thank you.
Well done, mate. 70, what are we seeing? That 78?
Yeah, we can see a gaggle of cars together on our timing.
All right,
here.
78 is the Kelvin van der Linde car.
Yeah.
There's another car in between them.
It might well be Jordan Taylor back out and circulating.
He'll be kicking himself.
Yeah.
Well, he'll be kicking the McLaren that took him off.
He has, but he's got every right to catch up and get past those cars, even though they're ahead on the road and he's not necessarily fighting them. He's got every right to try and get past them and get himself a lap back.
Lead gaps increase. Let's listen to Amy.
Seb, you're flying, man. Only one other car in the 32s and you're in the 31s. Everybody else 33s. Great job.
So Sebastian Buemi being given a verbal pat on the back, and he is getting away from Andre Lotterer right now.
Different tyres.
Yeah,
I will say that. I think the Toyota's on soft and the Porsche's on mediums.
And Kobayashi lapping quicker than both of them, both Buemi and Lotterer. So Kobayashi in third place. He's got a lot of ground to make up, hasn't he? 55 seconds effectively to Andre Lotterer, and 10s aren't going to do it, but full seconds, which is what he is gaining by, will all help.
I think that's possible. That's well within reach. You know,
yeah.
Was it 1 minute 10 seconds? It is not that much at this time. You know, still a long time to go in the race. So yeah, plenty of these guys and cars are still in the mix.
So there is the lead car. That's number 8, Sebastian Buemi. No stranger to success here. 4 times a winner, 18, 19, 20 and 22. So good strike rate that he's got. Another of the ex-Formula 1 racers. He's also, of course, been a Formula E champion. On board with Scott Dixon, the New Zealander, coming up now to the bank left of Indianapolis. He's got more traffic up the road, and the Cadillac that he saddles is to be found in 9th place, and it's currently the last car on the lead lap. So the 6 times IndyCar champion presses on in pursuit of Phil Hansen, and last time was a little bit faster. Back on board with Dixon. Got a McLaren, I think, just up the road, Rob, hasn't he? He's got to dodge past.
Yeah, he's looking at the back of the McLaren there and just got a picky spot as we've seen that move. Yeah, executed nicely. It's quite tight, but he gave the GT3 car enough room there, which is the important bit.
As into the pit lane comes Maurice Schuring, who was leading LMGT3, so that's going to give the class lead now to Battler. It's going to put van der Linde in the Lexus up to 2nd, and Maurice Schuring, aboard number 91, stays aboard by the look of it, ready for another stint. Maurice Schuring, who is yet another rookie.
Did a really good job there, though, because, you know, Battler putting pressure on him just being behind and having the experience, and actually Shearing seemed to be maintain the gap, so doing a cracking job.
Is this actually Klaus's first time here, though? I mean, he's raced all over the place, but has he raced in Le Mans before?
Yes, I think he has. I'm sure he has. And bear with me. 3 times he's raced here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Behind them, Nicholas Pino actually just doing the car's fastest lap for United Autosports. Just crept under the 4-minute barrier.
Treble 7 in. Owen Bastard, the GT4 champion of a couple of seasons ago. The D-station car fires up eventually and blasts away. Owen Bastard down the pit lane then. Another of the rookies.
Andre Lotter now finally finding his feet.
Right.
Matching Sebastian Buemi's times.
A yellow flag up at the first chicane, and that's the reason why Carl stranded. It was a McLaren, wasn't it?
It was.
And it rejoins. It's a UA car.
It was the car that we were just commenting on and saying it had just done its fastest lap. So,
Nico Pino.
Yeah.
Who's dropped a place to Maurice Scheuring. But he's got going. Didn't look like he'd suffered any damage in all of that, but whether that was a spin or he was given a shove, a replay might help us. Number 4 Porsche going through shot. Nick Tandy at the wheel, 16th. Bit of a thankless task when you're that far down, but you've still got to deliver.
Yeah, it's the worst thing. It's the worst thing that can happen. You know, you sat there lap down or more, but you have got to deliver because well, it's a job, isn't it?
Yeah. And that car lost time by going into the garage for repairs after Jaminet tangled with Sarah Bovi earlier on in the race in the Iron Dames Lamborghini that you've just seen rejoining, and the Lambo is back in the hands of the Swiss driver Rahal Frey now. So we've done 147 laps, and it is Toyota leading Porsche leading Toyota. Antonio Fuoco lapping quicker than those ahead, but he's got probably about half a lap, if not more, to make up, and the margin that he's gaining by is not that big. Still getting improved sectors, mainly in LMGT3, aren't we, now that you've put, if you like, the more experienced drivers into the cars?
Yeah, and it's a good time of day for speed. You know, the track's dry, temperatures are cool, engines love it. So it's not a bad time to be in. It won't be the quickest time. The quickest time is usually as it starts lighting up. So you've actually got a light track, sort of, you know, 6:30, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. That's when we all sort of drivers start volunteering for stints. Then when it's all nice and clean and fast. So happy hour is yet to come. So I think that's when we'll see quick lap times.
88, the Ford Mustang that is driven by Giorgio Roda, Mikkel Pedersen, Dennis Olsen. 5-second stop-and-go penalty for a technical infringement. And that's the second time that car has had that. You see the replay of the rotating McLaren, which seemed to do it all on its own.
Yeah, he just seemed like he just went slightly offline. He was just a little bit wide and maybe on the dirt or still a slight damp patch, but not the end of the world. He's got going, quick spin, and he's away again. So
yeah, importantly, he didn't get collected by any other cars, because that would have been a dramatic potential end to the race.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to affect him too badly, actually.
Second spin of the race for that car, as what's going on in LMP2. Nico Veroni has taken over from Ben Barnicoat and has now got into the lead of the class, ahead of the Nielsen racing car of David Heinemeier Hansen, and then Patrick Pillet from Vector Sport that has been up at the pointy end of that class all the way. But the AF Corsa car is up front in LMP2, number 24 there, rattling over the curb. That is David Heinemeier. Didn't do a whole season, but was a race winner from memory, and has done a lot of sports car racing both in the States and in Europe. There is number 10, third in LMP2, with the redoubtable Patrick Pillet at the wheel, another massively experienced driver.
Yeah, swap plenty paint over the years with Patrick. Him in Porsches, and when I was in Ferraris back in the day doing Le Mans series, when Peter, you were there as well. So yeah, I know Patrick.
Thing is, I was probably driving a Spiker, so I wasn't swapping any paint with you.
Watching these dots in the distance, were you? Well, there is the Vector Sport Orica. Stefan Rakelmi, Ryan Cullen, the other two drivers of that. And that's just been a really good, consistent car in this race. It has had one drive-through for a slow zone offence from memory, but other than that, just metronomically, goes round and round and round.
More fastest laps coming in. 3 of the GT cars this lap have all posted fastest laps, so time's coming down, track getting quicker. Klaus Bachler back into the lead of the GT3 class. They must be due a stop fairly soon.
I would have thought so, as also into the pit lane comes 311 then, the Jack Aitken Cadillac. The one driver we've not seen very much of in 311 in the race is Felipe Drugovich. Every time we talk about that car, it's mainly Aitken or Durrani, but I can't think we've seen a great deal of Felipe Drugovich.
Yeah, you're right.
Now, is that a master plan to use him more towards the end of the race, but maybe he doesn't like?
No, I think he cycled through.
Okay.
I think he has. I have seen him in the car, but yeah.
Right. I was just wondering whether, because it's his first Le Mans, they were going to use the others to do the night shift and put him in and use him more in the daylight, the other side of darkness.
That is a thing that is considered. You know, when they are doing race plans, you do consider stuff like that, and it's again just trying to minimise risk. So you know, I'm sure he's an excellent driver, but if he's not done it before, why take the risk when two teammates have done it plenty? So you know, we've seen Jack seems to have been in for an eternity, doing a great job, but yeah, maybe it's just minimising risk a little bit, and he'll also be fresh for the next day.
Yeah,
he's done a triple stint.
Okay. So he's
apart from that,
had his shoulder to the wheel.
Apart from the triple stint, he's not done much.
Done nothing. Let us, as we ride on board with Charlie Eastwood, just listen to what's going on in race control for a moment. The Race Director radio channel.
Car 78, manager car 78, we're getting reports that your rear lights are not working, your rear brake lights are not working. Please make sure you fix that problem immediately.
Right, so 78, second in LMGT3, is being brought into the pits. Not sorted at your next stop, sort it now. That's going to be a bad blow, isn't it, to the Lexus?
Yeah, it is. It's going really well. It's been strong, but if you've got to come in to repair anything, then that's really going to affect that. You know, all battles, but especially LMGT3, it's close out there. You know, if you're going to come in and you'll have to go into the garage to do that, that could really affect this race for them.
Good indeed. 27, Alex Riberas was at the wheel of that most recently and was doing good things in the heart of racing, Aston. And will stay behind the wheel by the look of it as the fuel is done. And on the same set of Goodyears, which is the tyre provider for LMGT3 and LMP2, Riberas makes his way up the pit lane. So 7th in class when it came in, that car. Ian James and that team second in the Qatar round of the FIA World Endurance Championship. And of course, we talk about Le Mans as a one-off, it very much is, but it does form round 4 of the FIA World Endurance Championship, and there are double points on offer. And the incident between Southsea and Taylor is now being investigated.
Yeah, is that Ian James? Is he the bronze driver in that car?
He is, yes.
Yeah, okay. Another teammate I drove for, but very accomplished driver back in the day. But yeah, drove for him quite a while ago.
British driver, British born, lives in America, but
I raced against him in the 1994 Formula Vauxhall Junior Championship.
I was about to say he's another graduate of Formula Vauxhall Junior, yes. You beat him, not just raced against him.
Yeah, he was second in the championship.
So he's made a good career for himself in America and now running this team and coming back to race in Europe. So that incident that we saw between Jordan Taylor, Gregoire Saucy, race control now having a look at it. As you see there, the Scott Dixon Cadillac getting up through the traffic, coming down through the first chicane.
Still slippy through there. You can see all the cars sliding a bit wide. And again, if you get offline, you can see how wet it is.
Yeah, because the temperatures have never really gone up at all. It's still been a pretty chilly day, even though we've had bits of sunshine. And let's just also listen to James Collado, 7th in the Ferrari.
Who's behind?
So James Collado wanting to know who is behind him, and the answer is, as you hear, Philip Hansen, who on his last lap was only about 94 thousandths of a second, those two. 1.6 seconds is the margin, and you can see this elasticated gap stretching and then shrinking around the circuit. But Philip Hansen, and indeed that Hertz Team Joe to entry, doing a good job, because it was not really anywhere special at the start of the race, down in 10th, and then it fell a little bit further down the order. But now it's up with the leading group pretty much.
Yeah, again, they're one of those cars that have just been in the background and just holding on to the lead pack, so they could be in the mix at the end.
From what I see, we should triple these tires with you stay at the wheel. From what I see, we should triple this tire and you stay at the wheel.
So triple stint for the tyres. They're standing up well, and James Collado being told to stay in the car because he knows what it and the track and the tyres feel like.
Yeah, fair comment, really. I mean, you know, I think the more you can stay on tyres, the more time you save, because you're not on cold ones.
Yeah.
So makes sense.
So he's currently running a soft tyre. As I said before, the only car up front that's running a medium tyre is the Porsche of Andre Lotterer.
Which makes one wonder whether that's the right call, doesn't it, against everybody else?
Well, I think that the fact that they're questioning you should do a third stint, and it's not like you will be doing a third stint. I think Andre Lotterer is going to be doing the third stint no matter what. So it's, you know, depending on conditions, heat of the tyre, wear in the tyre, whether you can get a third stint out of the soft or whether you need a medium to do a third stint.
Can't quite get my head around the sort of situation where the Peugeots are. The Peugeots are quite far back and not really been in contention, but every time I look up in dry conditions, the lap times are pretty good. You know, they're doing a 31 there compared to 30, 31 seems to be about the pace. So
yeah,
a little bit of a head scratch why they've never really shown that they're going to be in the mix this race.
They have had a spate of drive-throughs, and I think one of them we saw have a spin, didn't we? Was it Mikkel Jensen that had a spin into the barriers a little bit earlier on? But yeah, they've just never been as quick, and not being as quick over X number of stints all add up.
Yep, must be.
And you're right about the lap times, but they come and go. You know, they have a spurt of good laps, and then they fade again, whether it's to do with new tyres or, you know, the fuel load coming down. But yeah, they kind of spike and then drop again.
Yeah. Well, I guess, you know, all endurance racing does tyre degradation plays a massive part. So potentially, I don't say this. I'm not sure this is the case, but you know, if they are wearing tyres more than others, and it makes the car a little bit tricky to drive, then that might be a factor in it.
Let's go back to James Collado's radio for a moment.
We have the pace with all the bad traffic, so at some point we need to triple, mate. But I did your go.
Let's do it, let's do it.
James Collado up for the challenge of triple stinting the tyres.
The engineer was almost apologetic there. Like, oh, I'm sorry I've got to make you triple stint.
Now, we heard that radio message from race control about 78 and the line saying fix it immediately. The car's not been in. It's still out there. It's leading the class, so maybe they're hoping they can combine the pit stops, but race control did say immediately.
Yep, and what race control say goes. So we'll have to keep our eye on it, unless they've come back on somehow, unless there's I don't know if they've flicked another switch or they've come back on by themselves. We haven't really seen the back of that car.
No.
Going back to the Collado thing,
Yeah.
I think that chat is all about him doing 4 stints. That's what it is. He's already done a stint on wets. So he's not even halfway through.
And a lap time at the moment is around 3.5 minutes. In other words, he's not far off being lapped again. He needs to keep the pace here. The power heading towards Tertre Rouge is up towards the pit lane now as come number 3, Scott Dixon. And by the look of it, he is going to stay on board as well, and I think they're going to keep that set of tyres on the car. That was the one that Renger van der Zande rattled up against the Armco between turns 4 and 5 earlier on in the race, but it got away very, very lightly from what was a fair old impact. Just had another Peugeot spiky lap coming from Paul de Resta in 94. Nick Tandy has just done number 4 Porsche's best lap of the race as well. Right, away goes number 3. Makes its way down the pit lane. Other teams preparing themselves for their cars to come in. And Scott Dixon now thunders out of the pit lane. Renger van der Zande was suited and booted, ready to go, but not called upon. Scott Dixon stayed in the car, so a change of plan, possibly because he has a feel for the car and the tyres.
Yeah, it makes sense to have a driver ready just in case. So that obviously, we haven't heard what they were saying on the radio, but yeah, that can be a thing sometimes. That maybe they actually went to check the tyres, and if they were going to change tyres, they would change drivers. But actually, they then looked and got actually the tyres look fine, and therefore driver stays on board.
Yeah, Scott Dixon only done 1 stint so far.
Okay, interesting. But he's an experienced driver, and you can see the study of concentration. First came here in 2016. He raced as part of the Ford GT team. He's won the Daytona 24 Hours, so nighttime racing is not going to faze him. He's won the Indy 500, he's won the IndyCar title 6 times, and there, Renger van der Zande trying to get to the bottom of the plan. Why wasn't I allowed in? Why didn't you want me to get in? That's not the expression of somebody that's really happy with life.
No, I thought that, but, you know, you'll get over it, I'm sure.
Well, I guess he's just, well, now I've got to wait around here. I thought, oh, you know, you get called upon, and, well, I've got to get back in my seat now, put my headset on and just chill out and just wait.
Now there's 78 in for what looks like a routine stop. New tyres, fuel going on, but there's no work yet being done about the lights. So you might be right, Rob, that they've come back on because they're not remotely concerned about looking at the back of the car, are they?
The rear lights are definitely on.
Yeah.
And actually...
But wasn't it the brake lights?
It was the brake lights, you're right.
Well, they said rear brake lights. So, I mean, I know the brake lights are at the rear, but it's...
But did they not say that race control said they'd had reports that the brake lights weren't on? So is that a marshal who reports that in, or is that another driver who's reported in?
Could be either of the above, or it could be a scrutineer standing on the pit wall watching the cars and has noticed it.
Oh, well, let's see how that pans out.
If it's a brake light, it's more likely to be a marshal because they would see it slow for a corner. A scrutineer on the pit wall would see it just go past. So if it is the brake light specifically, not a tail light, then it's more likely to come from the marshal's post, I would have thought. So blasts back into the race. That puts Gregoire Saucy into the lead of the class for the moment in the United Autosports McLaren, but with that Damocletian investigation for the contact with Jordan Taylor. Leader is in. Second is in, so Buemi and Lotterer still on the same number of laps to a pit stop and in together. We say goodbye for the moment to Peter Dumbreck, who is away to explore the joy of sleep, and we'll hear from Peter in a few hours' time. So Andre Lotterer staying in number 6 Porsche, and the gap 21 seconds when they came in, but the Toyota is on the move. So away goes Buemi, and Andre Lotterer, taking on a lot of fuel, will be away now. The car winds its way away from the pit box. Also in now is number 7. So Toyota bringing the cars in on the same lap, but because of the gap, they're not really double stacking. There's enough gap between them to cycle one through before the second one arrives, which is ideal, really, because you don't want to be tripping over mechanics from the other car.
Yeah, absolutely. Seem to be on top of things at the minute. Toyota just pounding away, not making too many errors, and doing a good job.
This is where the experience of having taken part in the race for many, many years and having had so many successes in recent years comes into play, because, you know, there was an expression that the team used that every year they found a new way of losing the race, but because of that, they know all the different pitfalls. They know how to overcome these things. I'm not saying Penske doesn't for Porsche, or that AF Corsa doesn't with Ferrari. But, you know, Toyota have had so many ways of having to face disappointment.
You do lose, you do learn a lot by your, you know, your mistakes, your errors, and losing races, you know, and it's something that, as long as you then don't make the same mistake twice, you know, that's the killer. If you keep making the same error again and again and again, then obviously that's not the mark of a top team. But I think they did have a lot of errors and make mistakes, but clearly have been a massively strong and it seems like a gelled team.
Now this is in replay from the hypercar class, going off the road.
One of the Porsches.
It is a Porsche. You're right, number 4.
4.
That would be Tandy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh dear, Nick. Rattles it across the gravel, aims it for the access road. But that's very, very quick thinking, isn't it? That's the mark of a pro driver. Not panicking because I'm going off the road. Look, where can I get out of this? Where can I aim the car for? There it is. Momentum through the gravel, onto the hull standing, and away.
Yeah, exactly. Nick been there, done it several times before.
Yeah. Got the T-shirt.
Won the T-shirt, I think, as well. So, yeah, well, obviously we know that at the end of every gravel trap, obviously there's a tyre wall, but there's in most cases, if not every case, there is an access road there as well.
51 in then, James Collado. So we're being told about him staying on board to triple stint the tyres. And the team having a look to make sure that there's nothing that's been scooped up and has got caught in the bodywork that could present a problem. There was one year, wasn't there, when it was wet, that the Peugeots, going back a good few years, ended up picking up quite a lot of rubber that was junked, but because it was wet, it had the effect of being all squidgy, and I think it was described as like being a kind of pate that ended up in the radiators, and it caused overheating and problems and longer stops. So anything that might have been picked up, try to get cleared out of the car while you've got the time and the refueling's going on.
Yeah, why not have a look? Why not? And if there's anything in there, get rid of it, you know, because ultimately things that are stuck down near brakes, etc., can you know, catch on fire or burn. So get rid of it.
Rio Miata into the pit lane as well for Core Racing, and he blasts up the pit road now to rejoin. So 99 also back onto the pit apron. Julian Andlauer at the wheel of that car once more. I mean, that Porsche has been doing decent lap times ever since it had to sort out that door problem at the start of the race. And I know that Martin touched on it earlier on. It's the same door problem that they had at Spa, but it didn't seem to be a problem in free practice 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or qualifying or the warm-up. You know, only when you get to the race,
or for any of the other Porsches.
No, no.
Strange on that.
It is. Anyway, since they did whatever they had to do to the door and the latch, it has not been a problem. But they've lost so many laps that they're out of contention. They're gaining places when others hit problems. New boots go for 12. That's the Hertz Team Jota car, Will Stevens. Another of the list of ex-Formula 1 racers in the event this year, behind the wheel.
Slightly held up on that front left, didn't seem to want to come off. But still a good pit stop from Jota there. And still an amazing story, you know, the fact that they had that damage to the car, rebuilt it. And I think it might be that tiredness will creep in with that team. You know, you can't can't be understated that those guys and girls down at Jota put that many late nights in hours. That at some point, fatigue is going to catch up.
It could well be. Yes, I wouldn't disagree with that. You're on board with Romain Grosjean, not a Le Mans rookie. Last raced in this event in 2010 when he was part of a Matek Ford team. And there's number 50 that has now come in. Driver change as Antonio Fuoco hops out. And as they cycle through the drivers in number 50 Ferrari, it is going to be Miguel Molina, I think, that gets in. We've not seen a great deal of Miguel Molina thus far, I don't think, in the race.
No, well, Fuoco got out there and looked like he had a long stint. He had a bit of almost like bad back limp.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get your teammate in now. He can do some work while he goes and has a chill out.
So, just seen Fuoco get out. Let's just listen to the radio. No, we'll come back to the radio, in fact, just while we finish off the pit stop. There is the Ferrari dropping down, it blasts away, and we think Miguel Molina has taken that car over. It was running in 4th place. Never quite made the inroads against the Toyota, but is still in contention. Miguel Molina it is, getting himself sorted and comfy. There was an era, wasn't there, where the pit exit was much, much further up the road towards the chicane. But now you're sort of joining just on the exit of the first corner. So the drivers that are exiting the pit lane have to be pretty careful. Phil Hansen brought 38 into the pit lane. And when the fueling is done, now the team can go to work and change the tyres. So the new boots go on. And that Porsche will be back into the race as soon as possible. At 83's garage, the Robert Schwarzman car has just left the pits, so mechanics can stand down for the moment and have a quick break. Oh, a big drama there, because off the road you've got 2 of them. One is the 77 Mustang, and that looks like an LMP2 car, am I right in saying? Is it the Porsche Curves, Rob, is it not?
Yeah, number 24, that is.
So that's
LMP2.
the Nielsen Racing Shearer, Hannemeyer Hansen Simpson car that was second in class.
Second place, yeah. Second place, and the Mustang was pretty far down the road, pretty out of contention, that Mustang.
22nd, because that lost heaps of time early on, replacing the steering rack, and it was within the Dunlop S's, not the Porsche Curves, forgive me, and that was Heinemeyer Hansen being a hero on the inside. Here's the replay from on board the Mustang, and all of a sudden, there'll be a bang. There it is.
Yeah, clumsy.
I don't quite know what the Mustang was expected to do there.
Really clumsy. Again, you know, I say it all the time, you know, in this scenario, when you've got 13 hours, 15 minutes still to go, why take the risk? You know, he just had to sit there and he would have attacked, got a nice run through there and passed him into Tête Rouge. So he would have lost potentially half a second, 7/10 at most. But what he's actually done is stuffed it up inside, hoping that the Ford would see him and get out the way. But, you know, GT cars don't have to get out the way. We stick, as a GT3 driver, we've got to stick to our line.
David Heinemeyer Hansen, 10 times he has raced in the 24 hours, so...
Should know better.
Well, yes, you beat me to it. It's not a rookie mistake. It looks like a rookie mistake, but he's not a rookie, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, look, if the last hour and you're chasing down the leader, I get it.
Yeah.
But at this stage, that's, yeah, clumsy. You know, it's not malicious, but definitely clumsy.
And he's not for driving out of there, is he?
No, the 2 of them are going to sit there now for the next 3 or 4 minutes.
I mean, the Mustang's just had a horrible time of it, and he's way, way out of contention anyway, and that won't help the mood at Proton.
No, that is making a bad day worse.
But that has just cost the Nielsen Racing car any chance of winning LMP2, because it is so evenly matched with everybody having the same car, engine, tyre, that, even if they lose only 1 lap, that's still game over.
And there could be damage on the car as well.
Yeah.
It looked quite square on, actually, so there probably won't be, but again, it's just that risk versus reward.
Question for you, and I'm not trying to throw you under a bus when I ask this, but there's 1 recovery vehicle, there are 2 cars, and they've gone to what you might call the innocent party first. Now, is that on instruction from race control, or is that just a coincidence?
I would say they've got to that one first. So I'd say
just because it's nearer.
It's nearer. Let's get the one out which is nearer.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't think that would be the reasoning.
But yes, there's not a lot of interest in the Nielsen Racing car in contrast, is there?
No.
Everybody's around the Mustang, and the aggressor out of all of that, he's kind of, you know, taking extra punishment. We'll get to you in a minute.
Make him wait a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they're going that way.
To put it on an access road rather than on the live circuit when it's stationary, I would suggest.
Yeah, fair enough. Good point.
And actually, it's another credit to the marshalling team, because they know exactly what they should be doing. They've been well briefed from race control. This is what you do. There is Nick Tandy into the pit lane for the car to be cleaned. And again, everybody having a look at the tyres. Of course, the way the bodywork is for these cars, although they're closed wheels, they're closed wheel racing cars, there are those apertures so you can have a look at the tyres. And that's exactly what the Michelin technicians are doing, peering in to make sure that there's nothing nasty before they blast back out on a used set of tyres.
Yeah, they'll also be looking in later, not the tyre guys, but the team themselves will be looking in just to see the brake wear. So have a look at the brake pads. If there's a lot of meat, so a lot of material left on the brake pads, then they know that's good news. But if the pads are worn, then they'll probably think about stopping to change that sooner rather than later.
Just saw the classification in hypercar, which still says that in 20th in hypercar is the number 20 BMW, but that is still sitting in the pit lane and has been in the pit lane for the best part of 100 laps now. So I think that car's pretty much out of it. The only benefit to put it back on track would be to do some testing.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, you know, get a few photographs going over the line at the end, you know, because, you know, we are here for PR, social media reasons as well. But yeah, I think that's pretty much done and dusted.
I mean, even if it does go back out, you then have to factor in doing enough laps to be classified as a finisher. And it's unlikely to have done that many, I would have thought. In LMP2 then now, we have 183 Nico Veroni in the lead, having taken over from Barney Bencote, and then second is Ollie Jarvis now, 22 for United Autosports, and then number 10, the Vector Sport car, Vector Sport, the team owned by Patrick Cullen, Ryan's father. It's Ryan Cullen at the wheel of it at the moment. Then Ritomo Miata for Cool Racing, and fifth in the class, Clement Novalak, who led early on, but then had a wheel part company with the car, and had a slow in lap, and he's trying to recover the lost ground.
Yeah, again, some old hands in there. People like Ollie Jarvis, well versed at this race. Good team behind him, and yeah, some competitive cars in that field.
PJ Hyatt involved in a battle for sixth in the class with Joop van Uitert, who, if you've got a very long memory, you might remember his uncle coming to the UK and racing in Formula Ford 1600 in the early 1980s. Gerald van Uitert, but his nephew is hustling on in pursuit of PJ Hyatt, and in fairness, you'd expect van Uitert to get past a quick am here, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so, but he's got well,
PJ Hyatt across the curb.
I think that move will be done quite quickly.
Yeah, well, it needs to be, because they're approaching a slow zone, of course, where that incident between the Mustang and the other Orica has happened, so van Uitert needs to try to get by on the inside line.
Yeah, quite sensible there, actually. Don't put up a fight, let the car by. If he's catching you, if any car catches you by a lot of time, you know, you can judge how quickly cars catching it. If someone's catching you really, really quickly, just wave them by. Just have the body language and, you know, almost wave them through, even indicate, you know, just come on. So pair of you don't lose any time then.
So the slow zone is up here at Marshall's Post 3, and there is 24 then, which gets away now. Another replay of it. There's a gap, but it was just too late into the corner. The Mustang was offline, possibly, but he was...
Just wait. Just wait. Just wait another 5 seconds round the corner until you get to Tete Rouge.
But the speed with which Heinemeier Hansen arrived suggested that if he hadn't hit the Mustang, he was going off anyway.
Yeah, maybe.
He did look very, very quick.
Yeah.
So they're both out of the gravel. And there is a very frustrated Zach Robichon, whose race is unravelling around him.
But even if he was offline, or even if he'd stayed offline on purpose, it was such a small gap.
Yeah.
Just wait. Just you know, you've got to be patient. One of the big things in this race is you've got to be disciplined.
So 24, David Heinemeier Hansen is on the move again, but he has now lost 2 laps to the class leaders. So, as you were saying, could have lost a few tenths on that lap. Instead, he's lost 2 laps and has lost a chance of winning the race in the class.
Yeah, big shame, big shame.
Because he ain't going to come back from a 2-lap deficit, that is for sure.
Nope.
So that slow zone will end in just over half a minute's time. The road will be green all the way around it yet again. And the list of retirements is extending all the time now, as those two cars at least have been able to carry on in the race. Now, up front, the lead gap is a little bit reduced compared to what it was in the previous stint. Andre Lotterer, even though his last lap was a slow one, is only 11.3 seconds back from Sebastian Buemi in that lead car. 11 is back in. The last time we saw that, I think it was Jean-Carl Vernet going off the road at the chicane with a bit of help, but Antonio Serravalle behind the wheel now. And there, yet again in the pit lane, is the Mustang. Gravel flies everywhere after that trip off the road up near Tertre Rouge.
It's having an eventful race, isn't it, for sure? But that lead battle, as you say, those two cars, that lead Toyota and lead Porsche, do seem to have a march on the rest of the field at the moment.
Back to the garage goes 77. And I know they've come a long way, and I know they want to get to the end, but, you know, they're going to be so far off being classified as finishers, you start to question whether it's going to be worth carrying on with all the effort put in. There might be more damage to try to repair. At what point do we say we're fighting a losing battle here?
Well, sometime soon, I would think. Yeah.
The mechanics think, oh, not again.
But having said that, you know, these teams have got such pride in their car, such pride in their work. The mechanics, yes, they don't want to be fighting a losing cause, but they've put a huge amount of effort in to get the cars here. They've been here for best part of 2 weeks. Actually, for them to get the car over the line after 24 hours, even if it is out of the race with such a deficit, is still a reward for the guys who've put such effort in.
True enough. And of course, this is a new car for LMGT3 or SRO style GT3 racing this year. So anything they can learn from this race, and they've got 3 cars also to bring more data back. It's all useful in the long term, I guess, even if short term result rubbish, but long term development, mileage, learn things.
Yeah, because they'll want to come back next year stronger.
Yeah, indeed.
And they've got to learn how they can be stronger. And actually, that car's shown that it has got the pace. It's just been a bit unlucky in certain instances, and it hasn't quite worked out this time.
Front off, gravel tipped out. And then we'll have a look inside, because remember what happened to the 23 Orica from early on. Gravel got into an alternator belt and pulley and did damage, so they don't want yet more problems for this car. They lost so much time, like 64 laps early on changing the steering rack. They don't want another major drama. You know, what they've just been through is bad enough, but let's not make it worse.
Don't cause another problem. Yeah, absolutely. Be thorough. You know, they're not up against time because, you know, they're not in the race, so you may as well, get the stones out. You're absolutely right, because the last thing you want to do is a stone to end up somewhere it shouldn't and cause even bigger damage.
Just while we're looking at LMGT3, Maurice Schuring has taken back the lead, but has also just pitted. So at the moment, it's sort of him and Gregoire Saucy alternating the class lead, depending on who pits when. There's the Porsche in the pit road.
Yeah, and that 78 car still in the mix, still hasn't changed its lights, so I'm assuming that there was never a problem in the first place.
And no doubt on the Discord channel that allows the teams to talk to race control, they will have responded and said, no, it's all fine. And you know, that's clearly been sorted, because there's been no more strident conversation, should we say, from race control. So 91, the Manthey EMA, the Australian team, puts new boots on, new Goodyears. And Maurice Schuring staying behind the wheel of that car. Accelerates away, wheel spin, cold tyres, don't forget, stone cold tyres in this case. And James Collado, 7th, and let's just listen in for a moment.
Might have some rain in 10 minutes, might have some rain in around 10 minutes.
Here we go again.
Might have some rain in 10 minutes, the radio call. I blame you. Every time you're here, it rains, Rob. It's all down to you.
Well, you
heading towards the more so about 94 seconds. That's quite a big gap. But for 3rd and 4th, Ryan Cullen and here Ritomo Mayata are just 10ths of a second apart, nose to tail here. Good battle this for the the two Oricas, Vector Sport versus Core Racing. Let's listen to the race director radio.
We are getting reports of light rain at different locations. We have rain on track in different locations. Rain lights on, low mode. Rain lights on, low mode.
So you heard all that from the race control, the race director's office, saying reports of rain around the circuit and rain lights now going on. But if it is light rain, it's going to be that really fine drizzle that doesn't really soak the circuit, just makes it a kind of almost like psychological rain.
Yeah, well, it absolutely is, and you sometimes see it on your windscreen. And at speed, don't forget, you're sort of collecting more rain because you're doing such high speeds.
Yeah.
Where track, rain bouncing off the track, you've just got to keep the confidence up, keep it pinned, and you should be fine.
I know the LMP2 cars are not in the first flush of youth, but they still do give really good racing, and that fight for third rather proving the point. We'll come back to that in a moment because we can just eavesdrop quickly on Sebastian Buemi.
In the radar, we see bigger rain coming. We think it might be for wet tires. Keep us informed. I'll let you know when it comes. I'll let you know from rain spotters as well. So far, sector times look dry.
So heavier rain expected, light rain expected in about 8 minutes. That's what race control's now saying to the teams on the message line on the timing screens. But then you have heavier rain possibly. But we've been told about heavy rain all for the last couple of days, and it's never really amounted to very much.
Let's just see what comes. But again, all the strategy guys within the teams, engineers, are going to be having the chat about what we're doing. And it's not about what tyres even, it could be what tyre pressures, you know, because if it's heavy rain in wets, you need a higher pressure usually. But if it's only light rain or it's, you know, you're going to be going into dry weather, you want a lower pressure. So there's a lot to think about getting that side of things to give you the best chance of getting the good lap times and being safe out there.
So LMP2 battle up towards the timing line. Cullen versus Miata still. Sebastian Buemi leads Le Mans by nearly 20 seconds. The gap has extended again over Andre Lotterer. We've just been hearing from the Toyota team that there is heavier rain expected. Light rain has just started to fall, but the other element of the radio message from the pit wall to Sebastian Buemi used the phrase rain spotters are saying ... So it's not just a case of looking at your weather app. They've got people in the vicinity, you know, 5 miles away that direction, 5 miles away that direction, who are able to say, no, it's dry, or it's windy, or the rain, started. It's covering every base, isn't it, here?
We saw that being used actually a couple of years ago at Spa, if you remember, by WRT, where we saw at the end of the race, the track was dry, 100% dry.
That's right.
And they were putting wets on the car, and everyone couldn't believe what was happening. But they'd had spotters far away, and sure enough, a minute or two later, the absolute monsoon weather came in, and we saw the guys at WRT put the wets on, and then they panned back. A couple of them were doing a little rain dance at the back of the garage, and sure enough, it came.
And there was a very confused Iron Lynx Ferrari team, but then the race came back to them, but they were thinking, what are they doing? And then within about 10 seconds, they were as wet as a mermaid's flannel, and they realised why they got onto wets, because WRT knew exactly what was coming. Martin Haven joins us just in time for the rain.
Your own personal spotter guide, it is not raining outside currently.
Thanve you very much.
So I've come in dry as a bone.
Show off.
Yeah.
Temperature?
Not dropped very much. I was looking at the current track temperature. It's still 15.5 degrees. So it's 16.5 degrees about 2 or 3 hours ago when I last compared it. So it hasn't dropped so much, and that's the cloud cover. That stops the heat escaping, because when we've had clear nights, that's been most nights this week, it has gone down to 6 or 5 degrees overnight. And boy, haven't we known all about it. So the track is retaining what tiny little temperature there was, but as Rob will be all too well aware, you start adding cold rain on top of that. It's not going to be warm rain either, because the air temperature is lower than the track temperature currently. That's not going to do anything at all for track temps.
Yeah, it could actually be the trickiest part of the race now. We know the rain's coming, and as you just said, you've got the dark, which is always a factor, and rain and cold track. So yeah, this could be the trickiest time and might give us a bit of excitement.
Just gone past the 11-hour mark here at Le Mans, and are we starting to see a little bit of water on the camera lens? We certainly are.
And a yellow flag we're seeing as well. Marshall's post 30, so that's Porsche Curves area, Rob, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I thought that was Mulsanne Corner. The exit of Mulsanne Corner looked like it was just starting to rain as well, so it might be in more than one place.
Right, there's your yellow flag, Martin. So,
and there's your wet track as well.
Who's gone off? What's gone off? There's a yellow flag. It's coming up around this section of the circuit. So what do we see?
We see a lot of wet track. We see a lot of tyre tracks on a wet road, and there's somebody in the gravel. That's the final element of the Porsche Curves. That's an LMP2 car, but which one it is? Too many cars in the vicinity to see one that's stopped. 24.
24, I think. That's
That's only just come back out onto the
say,
track after being in the gravel.
In strife, continues to be in strife.
So that would be David Heinemeier Hansen again, if it's that car.
It is 24. Well, 24 is shown on the map, seen stationary. That's definitely a 4. It is 24. Look, and there's the red and gold on the roof.
So he was in the gravel because he pulled a move on a Mustang that was ambitious at best, I think we decided. Judge Bell thought that, and now he's put himself off. This time, I suspect, being caught out by the greasy conditions.
Yeah, which is fair. It's, you know, that's acceptable. That's fair enough. That's
understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But he is, unfortunately for him, having a pretty torrid half an hour or so.
Yeah, he will be absolutely furious with himself. See, the driver's door is open, so I'm not sure if he's still on board or if he's yelling for help. Now then, where the tyres going on to the number 19 Lamborghini.
Just go back to Heinemeier Hansen for a second. We'll finish the point, because when he went off the first time, it was whilst second in class. So one rash... Oh, and a wheel off a car as well.
Is that Heinemeier Hansen? No. Is that exiting the pit lane?
No. I think so.
Wet. It's got a bit, either that or it's had a big groove machined in it. 45. Oh dear, so CrowdStrike Racing by Algarve Pro by APR.
It's Colin Braun at the wheel of it, on 3. Well, that's not the first LMP2 car to shed a wheel. Remember Clement Novalak earlier on, but he lost a left front. That's a left rear.
Yeah, that's going down into Mulsanne Corner, so he's got quite a long way on that.
And it's an outlap.
Well, it's not a wet then. It has been machined by the bodywork. So he's probably been feeling that all the way around since he got up to the Dunlop curve, and it had a big wobble. Oh dear, that can't be just the rain.
No, but Rob, if on an outlap you lose a wheel, that's going to get looked at for an unsafe release, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the rule, yeah, absolutely.
Which is adding insult to injury, isn't it? Because the driver gets penalised for something that he didn't do. But he's not going to make it all the way back with one-wheel drive. That, I'm afraid, is likely to be the end of their race.
Yes.
We've seen cars in trouble like this before, and it's one thing if you have a puncture, then at least you've still got the rim and what's left the tyre being driven. But I think we might be premature with the old marker of doom, but I don't see the car going too much further. Driver change at number 2 Cadillac.
I have had that before, though, when I've lost a wheel. Exactly, and you can get back if you wind the brake bias all the way at the rear and start up and just apply a little bit of brake, it will find you a bit of drive.
Okay. Well, the team will be on the radio trying to guide him of what to do, but go on.
But he has got to come back a long way.
Yeah, true. Wets for the Cadillac.
Now then, lots of sparks coming off the wheel gun there on that right front. I never like to see that. Normally the wheel and the wheel nuts should go on without bits sparking off all over the place. The cameraman finds himself out in no man's land, getting squished by a wheel and tyre.
This is our pit garage, this is our working area. You make your own arrangements.
Which is extremely restricted. I mean, the cars are now getting so long, not quite to the ridiculous extremes of F1 cars, but they are getting so long that parts across the width of the garage, they do tend to overhang a bit.
Well, there's Colin Braun's car getting another look at the wheel parting company. And remember, on an outlap, wheel parts company with car, not a good look as far as race control is concerned. And Colin Braun parks it. The wheel heads across the track.
Being overtaken by your own wheel is never a good thing, is it?
And it goes up to the barrier. And further insult to injury is that a Goodyear hits a Michelin banner.
Race leader is in, Sebastian Buemi is out, if you follow me.
He's been in the car for a while, so he deserves a bit of respite, doesn't he, after a long stint?
Second place, number 6 Porsche is in as well to Penske Porsche Motorsport for service, and it is raining in the pit lane now, so I made it back just in time.
You did, and those two have been matching each other stint for stint. You know, they've come in together for the last 3 pit stops at least.
Yeah, they have, and I would say the 7 car, sorry, the 8 car, with Buemi in is probably just had the edge on that battle. Just seems to have had a little bit of pace and put a little bit of time into the 6.
So number 50 Ferrari, number 2 Cadillac, 51 Ferrari, 38 Hertz Team Jota, 5 Porsche, 311 Cadillac, 19. That's the second of the Lamborghinis, the 93 Peugeot, the 11 Isotta. They have all stopped. All of LMP2 pretty much has stopped as well. So they have had a phenomenal amount of synchronicity coming into the pits.
There's no real debate this time about tyres, is there? Everybody seems to be going for wets, and yet it's not that wet at the moment. They're all banking, I think, on this report that it's going to get heavier.
Yeah, they must be thinking that, because it's a little bit unusual that we've seen them hanging out on slicks
exactly
a lot for the race. So it's either the fact that the track is that bit colder and they don't want to do that, or their weather report is telling them that there's heavier rain to come.
Driver change in the number 7 Toyota. That's Jose Maria Lopez taking over from Kamui Kobayashi.
You can see the rain just being picked up by the headlights, can't you?
Yeah, and there's more rain here, quicker than there was the last couple of times.
We're going to have a full course yellow. It's about 30 seconds away and counting, but we're going to have a full course yellow, presumably, to recover the Colin Braun car and the wheel.
I think so.
So
the wheel is the easier element, because the marshals can walk down the barrier, pick it up and toss it back behind the barriers.
10, 9.
So that's the count in the background for the full course yellow.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow. Full course yellow.
So that is the Lisa bot, as we refer to it. That is the voice of Lisa.
We're intervening on both sides of the track. Please stay in the middle of the track. At MP18, stay in the middle of the track. We are pushing the car backwards.
So that's Colin Braun bailing out and presumably I was going to say putting a shoulder to the wheel to help, but actually not putting a shoulder to the wheel, because that's the initial drama.
Yes.
So
shoulder to the axle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he actually trying to lift the stub axle there and help it?
Possibly.
Because, of course, it's sitting on its belly a bit. David Heinemeier Hansen is in the pit lane, so that ticks that box. He's out of the gravel where we last saw him, Rob Bell.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just coming back to this. I'm not really sure what Colin was trying to do there, but he's got back in the car as if he's had a
brainwave.
Well, maybe he's been communicating, and the engineers in his team have been telling him to try something, get out of the car and pull something, push something.
Is the engine
do something.
running?
Do the marshals not need him in the car to turn the steering wheel to get it through the gap?
There is that. There is that.
I think they're just going to put it behind the barrier. That's our third full course yellow of the race, incidentally, just for the purposes of record.
That's 11 hours in and only 3 full course yellows.
But we did have an hour of safety car.
Yeah, but bearing in mind there are basically, you know, those are the 2 major intervention options. That's actually not bad considering how the weather's been.
But it shows how well the slow zones can work, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know, you don't have to keep interrupting the flow of the race. You just isolate one section.
And it's only because he's got 2 major jobs to attend to, speaking of which, that the slow zone, the full course yellow is out. So having changed the steering rack, there does seem to be work going on in the front of the car. Again, with her back to us is the crew chief on that car. She was the one who was analysing the fact that the steering rack was not steering in the way that racks should, and it does look like there's more attention to that area, Rob.
So when you were away, this was the car that was hit by the LMP2 car and in the gravel. So that got,
Heinemeier Hansen hit that one.
Yeah. So they got the car back, but clearly there's a lot of stones in it to start with, but clearly there's a bit of damage as well.
Jack Hawksworth being investigated for speeding in the pit lane. Rookie error for the Codis ASP Lexus driver. So in fact, our two replacements are both on track together, because the man who should have been in that 87 Lexus is Jose Maria Lopez, but he's driving instead of the injured Mike Conway in the number 7 Toyota, which he is currently at the wheel of, and his sub, Jack Hawksworth, is also on the pitch.
Colin Brown trying to get the car off the road, and it is going behind the barriers. That's game over.
I'm afraid it really is, yes.
It's not like the old days where you could sneak a wheel out through the trees and nobody would notice. It's all on camera now.
Great pictures in period in the middle of the day of David Leslie in an Aston, well, not in an Aston Martin, but with the bodywork off the Aston Martin atop the engine bay, trying to fix something or other. Unfortunately, his BMC training at the family garage didn't do enough for him. So here we are, Toyota's first and third, Porsche the meat in the sandwich ahead of the 83 AF Corsa Ferrari that has done a substantial amount of leading. The 50 factory Ferrari is in fifth. Cadillacs are rallying to 6th and 7th ahead of the 51 Ferrari. Then both Hertz Team Jota's cars in the top 10. Must get my race teeth in later. The number 5 Penske Porsche is 11 ahead of the Whelen Cadillac, the first of the two Lamborghinis, and in the pit lane now is the number 4 Porsche. No, it's not. 2 Peugeots and a Lamborghini. The Isotta still ahead. A, still going, and B, still ahead to the 99 Proton Competition Porsche. AF Corsa's Pro-Am 183 leads in LMP2 ahead of United Autosports and Cool Racing. Second in Pro-Am is the class pole sitter. The overall LMP2 pole sitter, AO by TF, that's 7th in the class. DKR Engineering's number 33 is in 8th place, and 3rd in Pro-Am. And it's United Autosports 59 McLaren. So Gregor Sosi leading from Manthey EMA's Maurice Schuring in the Porsche, and Codis ASP's 78 Lexus. I want to say Acura all the time, but it's a Lexus. That car lies in 3rd place in the LMGT3 category.
James Collado under investigation for speeding under the full course yellow. That has now come to an end anyway. We're at a green flag, and the lead battle is about to become really interesting, because Brendan Hartley has taken over 8 Toyota and Kevin Estre has taken over number 6 Porsche, and the blue touch paper has been lit. Kevin Estre has got to make up just over 18 seconds to get onto terms with Brendan Hartley.
Well, now then, it may not all be over for the number 24 car, of the CrowdStrike car, because there is Stuart Cox. So he is, Stu and Sam Cox run Algarve Pro, and he is talking his driver through what he needs to do.
I think what they're trying to do here is they're trying to get him to stick something in the rear disc to stop that from spinning. So if you can stop that one side from spinning, then the other side should gain traction. So they're actually telling them to find another part of the car to stick in that.
Like a bit of the door or whatever.
Door
exactly.
strut,
Like
saying,
yeah, like sticking the spokes of a BMX.
Wow. You've still got to be ingenious and creative.
Well, yeah, the same way you'll stick a screwdriver into a tooth in a dog to stop the engine turning over if you're trying to undo a recalcitrant bolt. He's trying to, as you said, your solution was to have your foot on the brake to stop that unladen hub spinning while the other one does some drive. Otherwise, all the drive goes to the wheel that's spinning, which is not really helping you because there's no wheel.
Yellow flag at Arnage now. So we've just got one full course yellow clear, and the yellow briefly out now goes back in. As into the race once more goes number 12 Callum Eilert at the wheel of the Hertz Team Jota Porsche. So 163 laps done, green flag back around the circuit. As there we have a replay of what's going on in the pits, whether it's cars coming in or mechanics at work. We've had a little bit of the frivolity of the mechanics in the pit lane from earlier on, And it's not just a case of cleaning the screen, it's also making sure the front of the car is devoid of any pickup that might end up being somewhere nasty and do damage to the car.
We need to apportion the blame. Who was doing a rain dance? Did we see? Can we pin the blame? I don't think I can't spin Rob. He's far too nice a man. But well, you did ask for entertainment.
We did, and I know it's been a nightmare for the teams thus far. That was, you're sparking from the guns again.
It did go on in the end, but...
we've had 11 hours and 20 minutes of the race, of which not that much in real terms has been wet. And yet, 2 or 3 days ago, we were told it was going to be a wet race pretty much all the way through.
Well, a week out, the forecast looked really grim, and then they sort of backed away from that. Well, no, actually, it looks as though... I can remember on sort of Wednesday, people saying, no, actually, the forecast is suggesting it could be dry all the way through. Well, it's been sort of neither one nor the other, and isn't that so much Le Mans?
But wets go on to 83, which has led more hours of the race than any other car, and Robert Schwartzman at the wheel of it is set to accelerate back down the pit road. Cadillac in, that's number 3, isn't it? Now, Renger van der Zande was ready to get on board last pit stop and was turned away. Your name's not down, you're not coming in kind of attitude, and Scott Dixon stayed behind the wheel. This time, Renger van der Zande is in the car. So the Dutch driver behind the wheel, and he was in the barriers early on, bounced off the guardrail, carried on, and gets himself back behind the wheel of a car that is still in with a chance.
Well, the reason, presumably, for waving him away was that they were happy with the tyre-driver combination. Now, it may be that they've decided that Scott Dixon has done enough with a triple that he doesn't need to stay in any longer, but more relevantly, they're putting on wets instead of slicks. So if you're going to change the tyres, then change the driver as well. had that situation before, and keeping his foot on the brake to get the rear caliper to lock the disc allowed him to actually creep a car back to the pit lane at the Nordschleife. So that's a future potential for anybody who finds themselves in that situation.
And you could throw the brake bias all the way to the rear as well.
Give yourself
so
as
you're not
much
locking your
brake as possible. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's just the way the differential works basically on the LMP2 cars, and it sounds like maybe on the GT3 car as well.
Yeah.
Obviously rear-wheel drive only, and they don't have that ability like the hypercars do to drive around on the electric as well. So it's one of those things. Maybe you live and learn, but thinking on the spot, the team did their best.
And if they've not had that situation before, they don't learn from that experience. So it's
exactly. So if it was if it was an F1 car and the diffs are much more controllable on the fly, and you could do things on the steering wheel to change that. I'm not sure if a hypercar can do the same thing the way that it works these days, but yeah, certainly in F1 it wouldn't be an issue.
Another tyre little anomaly that you may not be aware of. At one stage we saw one of the hypercars with front tyres only. So that was one of the Le Mans hypercars with that front hybrid drive.
Let's go back to your original question before we saw the replays and digressed. So the theory is you put a brand new wet on, and you've got sharper edges to the blocks of rubber. So even at this speed, believe it or not, you'll be losing rubber, the edges from the tyres. The square edges of each block become slightly less square, a bit more rounded off, and in a 3D sense. So you'll lose the ability to shift the amount of water you want, and that's around 50 litres per second that these tyres can shift. It's a lot. There's only so much they can do though before they aquaplane. Hence why we're behind a safety car and not going flat chat. So 50 to 60 litres per second that they'll shift. And the squarer the blocks are and the deeper the blocks are, the more chance you've got of surviving these kind of conditions. This was the moment with Valentino Rossi's car with Al-Hati. It's such a, I call it one of those kind of pathetic spins where it doesn't really spin, it slowly goes away from you. You think, I can't believe this is happening. And into the barrier went, and out of the race, the car went. Punctured radiator. Poor old Hamid Al-Hati could not believe it that had happened to him. A well-accomplished bronze driver is Hamid. We see the number 7 car in the pits here with Nick de Vries at the wheel. They've had a bit of an up and down race, haven't they? And it was a up and down day so far for Nick de Vries.
It has been, hasn't it?
Having that crash in morning warm-up yesterday, which I still think, I mean, it always takes two, doesn't it? That situation where the Lexus LMGT3 car braked randomly coming out of the Porsche curves just as Nick wasn't looking at the track. He was making it did take two. I think with either of the drivers not doing that, obviously they would have avoided the incident, but just one of those unfortunate things. Nick not really paying attention, looking out the peripheral vision just above where he's looking at the steering wheel, and then the guy in front just slamming the brakes on in a corner where he should be accelerating rather than braking. It just
and was penalised for that in the race. They did get a penalty at the start of the race, the Lexus team.
Which I felt at the time, it was, if you were going to pass more blame on anyone, it should be to the driver for no reason slamming the brakes on. But
well, that's
the driver's not looking exactly where they're going, so it wasn't 100% the Lexus's fault. I don't know which driver. Who was it?
It was Kelvin
van der Linde, and he did get the penalty for it. So
quite a chunky penalty as well.
Yeah.
And van der Linde is he's not a bronze driver.
No, he's
exactly.
not.
Exactly.
So should have known better.
And quite what the explanation might have been for stamping on the brakes at the end of the Porsche curves and almost coming to a dead halt, I have no clue.
I've been caught out in a similar way before, back in the LMP1 days, where you had that explosive energy coming through on acceleration, pure four-wheel drive from 0 mile an hour upwards. You had such a 1,000 horsepower under your right foot, and incredible traction, of course, being four-wheel drive. And it was on an outlap in Shanghai, and I had an LMP2 car in front of me, which kind of slowed down on the exit of a hairpin just as I was accelerating. I went straight into the back of it. Oh. It's just when cars do things that you're not expecting, that's when you're going to have a situation.
Yeah. Because he's suddenly reversing towards you as you're accelerating effectively. I mean, he's obviously not going backwards, but he's going forwards so much more slowly that the gap just shrinks to nothing in a heartbeat.
You're so well tuned. It's amazing how when you get to this stage in the proceedings, that how finely tuned you are as a driver. In all the categories, you've got the rhythm of what everyone's doing. You even spot cars and you go, oh, that one was trouble last time in that corner with that driver at the wheel, and I know what to. You're so in the rhythm and aware of all of these scenarios, how the car's feeling and how the track feels. It's an amazing place to be. Very, very much in the zone. That's what we talk about when we say when an athlete's in the zone. It's just you're doing it on autopilot because you're using so little of your brain at that stage to actually focus on all of the things that most people would be focusing on. It gives you that extra capacity to do other stuff.
Nick de Vries now under investigation for exiting the pit lane.
Well, now I saw him
car.
pulling away from the pit lane exit, and the red light was not on, and somebody else was leaving
Correct.
the pit lane.
Yeah.
Again, the rule is that you may not rejoin behind the safety car that you came into the pits from. So you must wait until at least one more safety car comes past. But the pit exit remains open. Let's say you're behind safety car A, you peel into the pits, safety car A goes past the end of the pit lane, and once it's over the Dunlop curve, the pit exit light goes back to green until the next safety car approaches. So Nick's come to the end of the pit lane, light's green, gone out. The team should have made sure that he did not go to the end of the pit lane until it was due to go red when the second safety car in the line came along, the one that he had to join behind. So that's an error by the team. He's been sent away.
He's then obeys any signal he's given.
And he's been sent to the pit exit. It's green. He goes.
I guess it's easily rectifiable, isn't it? They're going to join one safety car eventually anyway. So just, I don't see any harm in them. Race director saying to Toyota, bring him in this lap around and wait for the next safety car to overtake you. Then you're back to where you should be.
Well, the previous one that was under investigation was Simon Mann for the same thing, and literally as I speak, popping up on the screens, says no investigation necessary for that one. My guess would be it will be exactly the same for Nick de Vries. One bit of exciting news, but you can't guess what it is.
Weather?
It is weather. It is the intermediate rain, Class 1, ends at 7:10. That said 7:15 before.
That's remarkably accurate. Weather forecasting.
That's remarkably accurate in terms of a prediction. I'll give you that. Yeah. Whether or not it proves to be remarkably accurate.
Now then, you say it might not matter which safety car Nick de Vries rejoins. That entirely depends on where the race leader or the leader of his class is, because if he was in front of the safety car, which the class leader is in, and rejoined the same safety car queue, he guarantees himself a wave by when he should perhaps have rejoined the safety car behind the class leader. So it does, I mean, apart from the fact that it is a rule, it's a rule for a good reason, and that is the reason. So Toyota, if they did allow him to join the same safety car queue, have dropped a. They have made a mistake.
No, they can rectify it just by bringing him in on this lap, sitting at the end of the pit lane, and let the other safety car pass them.
No, you're 100% right.
It's just like if you've overtaken somebody off track, you let them back pass again, and then you won't be investigated.
He is behind the leader in the same safety car train. The only thing that would have been different is he would have been behind other hypercars. He's not overtaken the leader.
No, but he's gained an advantage unfairly over his rival. So you're absolutely right. The remedy is to make him come back into the pit lane and drop a safety car as he should have done. He'll lose no time on track that he shouldn't have lost anyway.
And they may very well choose to do exactly that.
Now, the real problem then occurs if some of the cars that were behind him then stop, and then we start to get into, okay, right, hang on a minute, oh, no. But if they stop, they should drop back a safety car anyway, so it should be less of an issue. But
so
here he
go.
comes.
It's a replay of it.
I saw him slowing down, and the pit lane exit light was green. There you go.
There's the safety car train.
That's
releasing cars.
That's the end of the train that he left. So he was not allowed to go out at that stage. But because Toyota released him, he went.
Yeah, so he was clearly at the front of that pack when it came in.
Yeah.
So then he's coming to the pit stop.
No blame to Nick de Vries. The team should have made.
Could they have done that? Could they have done that quickly?
Yes.
Turned the car around by the
fuel
time.
only, wasn't it?
Fuel only, yeah. So they could have. So if he was at the front of the pack,
exactly,
he comes in, fills up with fuel.
It wasn't fuel only.
But he comes into the pit lane.
No, it was a driver change, wasn't it? As we saw him getting in.
But he comes into the pit lane quicker than the safety car.
Because it's so slow out there at the moment.
We saw that on board with Yefei. He came into the pit lane, he was going twice the speed of the safety car nearly.
Oh, and he's in the safety car A. I'm looking at the screen now. Safety car A has got the biggest gaggle of cars behind it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Safety car B's got a relatively tiny number.
Yeah. So that's how it happened.
It happened.
Driver sees a green light and you go. That's what you're told.
Absolutely right.
You stop at the end of pit lane. If it's red, you do not pass that red light. He's seen a green light and he's followed everyone out.
Also, if it's green, you do not park in the pit exit. You can't park in the fast lane. That's a penalty as well. He was sent, off you go, lights green, go. He was 100% correct. The team were wrong to send him. So they know the rules. They knew where he came from. They knew what they should have done. And it's a fatigue error. It's just a mistake. But it needs rectifying.
They need to
needs
put him
rectifying now. Yeah.
Exactly. They need to put him in before any other cars start pitting and all getting out of sync. And
well, even if, let's say, he was behind A, so should be behind B, even if guys in B now pit to muddy the waters, they're not going to rejoin B, they're going to rejoin C, so they're going to drop back anyway, so that status quo will be preserved. But Toyota have to act now, bring him in, just to stop and wait, and then get back into the right queue. Here's the 8. Oh, that's the 7.
So they have done exactly that.
So they have done exactly that.
It's the right thing. That's probably what we could see David Flory, that man there. We could see, and he's so switched on. I think what caught them out is that light just changed as he was trundling up. And but you're right. They should have seen that he was effectively going to join the same set. They probably just imagined that he was going to trundle down and the red light would be on, and normal.
But when they release him, behind them, literally behind them on the other side of the pit wall, the same safety car is going by. So they knew it was too soon. They knew it was too soon, but
you
they
could pass blame on the system. The light could have easily changed red again.
Because there's nobody behind him. There's no. If that light changed to red,
I mean, you blame the team. You can blame the team, but you can blame the system as well.
That's not the rule. The pit lane exit remains green until the next safety car appears. So that's not the rule. You don't just shut it depending on which car's there. You shut it depending on what the rule is.
Either way, safety car B is about to come through. Let's have a listen to what's going on aboard the number 3 Cadillac with Seb Bourdais.
It's raining pretty hard in the car.
It's raining very hard.
Inside the car or where you are?
It's dripping inside the car from the top of the screen.
Copy that.
It's a little ridiculous. There's really not that much water on the ground. We could totally race.
he wants to race.
Of course, as soon as he picks up speed, all the water in his car is going to drain out and make the track wetter.
So here goes safety car B.
And there's a green light.
And there goes Nick de Vries.
Yep.
Back in your rightful position. Oh, and he's checking. Just stop there, just checking if, is this really the right safety car to be in now, guys? Yes, you're good to go.
Doesn't look drier from this camera shot.
Well, according to our timing screens, in just under 12 minutes, the clouds will part. The sun will start to warm us gently.
There's no promise of sun.
No, there's not there.
Or warm.
I think they should test it out. If you've got one driver already saying we should race, then just merge the safety cars now and allow those cars to drive at their own pace, and they can decide.
Well, they can't, and the problem is that is an irreversible step. Once you merge, then you do the wave round, then you go green. We don't have it's a long safety car, single safety car. That you only go to the merge and pass around when the track is safe and ready to go green. So it wouldn't materially affect anything, because you do the pass around and everything else, and then they're all in one queue, and they're going to be released all in one queue, whether it's a lap later or an hour later. And it's not for track worker safety that we've got the 3 safety cars out. So you're right, they could do that and then be ready to go.
I think Eduardo could do that. It's down to the race director's discretion whether he starts the race or not. Because what if they did merge behind the set? If there was damage to repair at the side of the track, and you'd done that whole process, then someone else suddenly crashed and damaged the barrier again under one safety car. You're not going to bother splitting them back into 3 safety cars.
No, you will keep them out behind one safety car. No, you're right. So that's true. He could do. Mathieu Jaminet probably wants it to go green quite quickly, because he still hasn't got a working wiper.
By the way, the same, as we predicted, the same note appeared, and it was no investigation necessary for number 7.
Because they have undone the error. Yep. Why? And again, you know, the quicker you react to things like that and try and correct the mistake, as in all things in life, the better it is. Dangerous Dave has wandered in, and he's looking pretty moist as well.
We're about to have a bit of a switcheroo. I think that's you off now.
I've got to go and do highlights if they're ready.
Right, okay.
Or they're not.
And we're going to bring
breakfast otherwise.
We're going to bring in Peter Dunbreg.
All right.
In just a moment or two's time.
In which case, some wise words from Anthony Davidson, as in comes the
number 4 Porsche.
Number 4.
Mathieu Jaminet. Jaminet down pit lane now at that 60 km/h speed limit. So 2 speed limits in these cars. You've got the 80 kph, of course, at a full course yellow or slow zone. And then you have to remember, when you come into the pits, if you are in, as they are, in a safety car situation on that, if you're in a full course yellow, situation where you have 80 kph or a slow zone, you come into the pits, you have to remember to then press the pit lane speed limit button on top of the full course yellow button, because it will slow the car down even further. It's so easy to forget to do that because you feel like you're going slowly anyway, and you incur a speeding penalty in the pit lane.
Good morning, Peter Dunbreg. Thank you for the cup of tea.
My pleasure. Yes, it's good to be back. Looking at the screens,
nothing's changed.
Nothing's really changed since I left.
We could have a longer lie-in, really, there. I was going to ask both of you drove LMP1 cars in different eras and states of this. Every time I talk to people about hypercar, they say that one of the things about this generation of cars, whether or not there's a difference in performance for LMP1, is the systems are significantly more advanced. Now, I can recall an interview with you in the early days of LMP1 hybrid, where you talked about the level of acuity that was needed to manage those systems, and it was different. It was different. It was an eye-opener.
It was different. I wouldn't say they're more sophisticated now, because we were doing things like torque vectoring from front to rear axle, like I mentioned before, from as soon as you press the throttle down. Whereas today, I guess you could argue either way, because today the complexity comes from the fact that the ICE, the internal combustion engine, loses power in these hypercars as the battery starts to feed in its power.
Yeah.
So your constant 670 horsepower is always there. And that's quite an engineering marvel, I think, to be able to achieve that. Whereas the car I drove, the hybrid, it was a bolt-on top of what you had. The hybrid was a hybrid boost on top of.
Yeah.
But you had all sorts of things going on. You had the automated lift and coast, which you could cancel at any time from inside the car. So that's one thing to work on. So we see the Manthey Racing number 92 peel off into the pit lane now as well.
Class leader.
So yeah, it's. I wouldn't say they're more complex today in terms of what a driver does. They have the anti-roll bar that they can adjust in the cars as well today. That's something I didn't have. That's a mechanical system. But yeah, I think they're pretty comparable.
Yeah. The other thing I think people would like to understand here is they do look beasts. The hypercars look beasts. They look a handful. LMP1, obviously the cars that these cars replaced, at times they looked a bit of a handful, but they did look fun. Were they fun to drive, Peter?
They were fun, but thankfully they're a lot more simple. So my last year in P1 was 2012, and I've had very little information on the way. It was basically get in the car, drive it, don't worry about your roll bars, don't worry about any regen, hybrids, nothing, just
get on with it.
Just an engine, fill it with fuel and drive.
It was a benign car, yeah, just very analog, I guess, wasn't it? Which there's a lot to be said for that.
It's fair to say there are a number of drivers that the change didn't suit. So the change to the hybrid rule set and the systems that came with it didn't suit everybody. So 92 car not firing up. Or are they holding the car?
Did it have a penalty for any reason? Because that looked like a...
I think they may have held that car for exactly the same reasons we just said for the Toyota.
And that's why we saw the Ferrari being held as well momentarily, of course, wasn't it? Because they wanted just to double check that you're not going to go through and the green light be on when the safety...
Wait for the light to go red. That's what it is.
That's exactly why they're holding the cars at the pit stops. We've worked it out.
There you go.
Through trial and error.
And Nick de Vries.
And Nick de Vries. I don't know if you saw it, Peter, and for anyone just joining, Nick de Vries joined the same safety car as he joined the back of the cars that all left the pit lane under the green light. Same safety car that he came in on. Safety car A is the longest group of cars by far. That's where he was. Let's hear from Felipe Nasser.
So Felipe, rain is basically going to stop here in the next 3 or 4 minutes. Obviously the wiper still doesn't work, but rain should stop, so it'll just be spray from the cars in front. So our goal is in the daylight to be able to see and continue, and we can pull a tear off each time and re-rain next to the windscreen if needed.
He gives with one hand, takes with the other.
It was good news, bad news, wasn't it? It's the kind of, stuff's going to get better. Obviously, the rain screen doesn't work anymore. Not great.
That is not great. Hopefully for his sake, the solution they put on the screen, as any motorbike rider out there will know, is fairly effective.
Yeah.
And potentially, the quicker he goes, the more the rain will dissipate, and he'll see more, I think, as he goes faster.
And you would hope that the problem will decrease as time goes on here. It's just before 7 minutes past 7 in the morning, as you heard there, the Porsche Penske Motorsports engineer.
So how long has the safety car been out?
It came out at 3:44 this morning.
Okay.
So 3 hours and just over 20 minutes now. Let's have a listen to what's going on for Seb Bourdais. He wanted to go racing. How does he feel now?
There are no rivers, no real standing water. I mean, there's absolutely zero reason why we shouldn't be racing right now.
Copy that. I think it's looking better. There's still, I mean, quite a bit of spray, but I think if we did get going, it would be a bit better.
Yeah, well, he's said that before. He's keeping the pressure up. That will be, I'm sure, be relayed by a number of the teams to race control. They want to go racing. If this rain stops, as it's predicted to do imminently, it's still raining heavily at some points.
Catch-22, I guess, for the race director, because, yes, he wants to get the track moving faster. It will, again, the water will be thrown off. It will become a better line for driving on, but if we get a spate of crashes straight away,
Blamed immediately.
Blamed immediately, so he can't really win.
That's one of the subtle sights of the Le Mans 24 Hours. It's the traditional pulling down the shutters for cars that actually are out of the race.
Let's listen.
Not a good sound.
And not a good look either.
Ferdy Habsburg that was, with the number 35 Alpine.
I didn't actually see the other engine failure.
I think
car.
it was in the pits, and they retired it from the pits. They'd had some alarms, I know, on that car. That's Ferdy climbing away from it. He'd have been told there was a fire, I'm sure, which is one of the reasons why he was getting away sharpish. Good to have him back, by the way. Missed a couple of races after a nasty injury in testing. But the Alpines showed the performance, not the reliability.
Yeah, certainly need both when it comes to this race. And so far, it seems like they haven't been able to achieve that reliability.
Honestly, I cannot see it, how this can, but the visibility is so bad, there is a lot of water.
Yeah, copy. We just heard car 50 complain about exactly the same thing, and I think we are not the only ones.
So it's the opposite point of view, I think.
Wow, and I would have thought Kubica would be... I was sure we were going to hear a radio message there from Kubica saying, let's do this.
So listen to what Porsche are saying. Matt Campbell.
But in terms of weather, yeah, this rain will be gone in 5 minutes, and we are looking at 2 or 3 hours of no rain condition. The showers will come back for around noon until the end of the race.
So differing points of view, but more or less the same information being relayed to the teams, gentlemen, that the rain is easing or stopping and will be stopped for, well, what is this, 4 or 5 hours?
I would expect the cars a little bit further down the order to want to go racing. Of course, we heard Seb Bourdais already. What position he's in? Position 9. So, of course, he wants to get started because he can't make up any positions unless they get racing.
And he's one of the guys here, knows this circuit like the veritable back of his hand, and will feel he could do well at the moment.
Well, and also in the US, I mean, you've done a lot of racing in the US as well, Peter, that they tend to, they're a little less shy to go racing in the rain. They, like, say, Daytona 24 Hours, for example, they just pound round, don't they? And that's what Seb's used to, racing over there.
Yeah, I can understand it, the frustration. I'm not so sure it's going to be too long before we start to see race control taking a serious look at merging this field, and that's the first sign.
I'd like to see them break. I think the conditions are fine now, and now it's light. That's the big difference for me.
That is a huge difference for them.
Just, it's time to get going. They're racing drivers. The tyres can do this. The cars can do this. Everyone's bored. Yeah. Let's go racing.
I think the first few laps may be a little bit painful, the first sort of 3 laps until majority of the spray disappears. But after that, yeah, it's going to be a decent racing condition.
And like I was saying, Peter, before, that you've got the advantage, that luxury right now. We've got to merge to one safety car. That takes a little while anyway. And you've got that perfect test for the drivers to be released to do the wave around when it comes, when they're behind the single safety car. Do the wave around as well, and get the drivers used to those conditions, and then you have a reassessment. It looks absolutely fine to me.
Let's see what Tota are saying.
Okay, your radar shows that it's stopped raining actually, and we don't see another system behind it at the moment. So things should be going in a good direction from now. But obviously everywhere is wet, as I just said, so be careful.
Well, we can give our point of view from the comfort of the commentary booth. Lou Beckett's on pit lane. Lou, what are you seeing, hearing, feeling?
As Ad was just saying, there's a significant difference from when I first came out onto the pit lane at 6 o'clock this morning to what, an hour, 10 minutes is it since then? I don't know. It's lighter, obviously. Compared to what Yiffy Yi was saying about how he was happy it was under safety car, there's no rain falling anymore. It's definitely drying out. As I say that, a maverick of water has just landed on my head. Yeah, there's a marked difference from 6 a.m.
Thanks very much, Lou. Well,
the only issue would be is on the Mulsanne straight, from my experience here, that you get a lot of spray coming off the cars in front, and then visibility can become, at that speed, can become a little bit more difficult. Well, so that would be the main issue. In terms of aquaplaning, no, that's not going to happen anymore, but the visibility could be the
sun day in and day out, and the youngster fell in love with the sport. As an amateur, Floyd accumulated an 84-6 record, and he won 3 national Golden Glove tournaments along the way. At just 10 years old, he was described as being able to do what 19-year-olds could do.
It felt good, but it was very hard. I was struggling.
Where does it sit?
First, I want to thank the good man upstairs for giving me this opportunity to win the national championship. And second,
Raul Neville, last in the LMP2 category, the American Indian, invented an AI company that he sold to Intel for 400 million euros. I wonder how he goes racing.
What a great set that is. Congratulations to him. They've had an eventful day, haven't they? They've had an eventful race. On the cameras, not always for the right reasons, cycling through the journey that some of these cars have had. Loved your stat earlier on, by the way, Ben, about the most cars on the lead lap. We're approaching that. I think we're approaching that period of time from the chatter on the radio.
I think they should rename it the Happy Merge phase. Officially.
It will be the happiest merge that we've seen for some time.
A merge of delight will descend over the field when we finally look like we might get some racing in.
When I woke up this morning,
finally look like we might get some racing in.
When I woke up this morning to my alarm, which was not welcome. Or is it under safety car? It always used to be.
It's so bad, it's incredible. At 110, it's impossible to see anything more than 20 meters.
Yeah, it doesn't look really nice out there from the onboard camera.
On the onboard camera is better.
And the team having a look to make sure that there's nothing that's been scooped.
About any differences they see from that increase in speed.
Rain for a little while at least. 45 cameras around this circuit, 140 cameramen across 3 shifts. So I think we're probably saying a big thank you to our night shift guys who will be coming off in about 15 minutes time. And they have been out there in the wet conditions, in the dark, filming cars going at 80 kilometers an hour for the last couple of hours. So big thanks to them. Imagine 45 cameras. It's actually not a lot for 13.5 kilometers.
Well, there's camera 32. Out on the outside. And
he looks pretty dry.
Yeah, good setup.
A very good setup.
He won't know it's just realised that it's daytime. Like a mole coming out of his hole. Oh no, they're blind, they can't see.
You must get sort of zoned in, mustn't you? So much skill, by the way, to chase.
Oh no, they're blind, they can't see.
You must get sort of zoned in, mustn't you? So much skill, by the way, to chase a racing car. I have.
Oh my God, it's awful. It's so difficult.
I tried one and then I let go before I broke it. But to manage zoom and sweep and all the other incorrect words that I'm going to use for all of the things you have to do to make sure that you keep a racing car in focus as it moves through the incredible pictures we get trackside. We salute you, sir.
For situations like this, we should have thought about the Cadillac feature with a sound system.
It'd be very nice to have heated seats, maybe cooled cup holder for a nice drink and some nice tunes.
What I'd like to do is connect the radio from the number 3 Cadillac directly to the radio for the number 83 Ferrari, and just let Bourdais and Kubica talk about it between themselves. I think that's the conversation everybody'd like to hear. Come on, get on with it. Harder racing. In and out of the pit lane in the Aston Martin.
Every teardrop is a waterfall has just been played out over the PA.
tapping up the coming over from the UK, from the British Motorsport Marshals Club, which I'm proud to be. Huge number of marshals coming over from the UK, from the British Motorsport Marshals Club, which I'm proud to be a member. Get in touch with them if you are interested in getting the absolute optimum. What I'd like to do is connect the radio from the number 3 Cadillac directly to the radio. Safety cars continue at Le Mans.
This program is presented by Total Energies, official supplier of 100% certified sustainable fuel for the 24 hours of Le Mans.